Hello everyone, this is Michael Gibbs from Go Cloud Architects. Can you hear me? And welcome, by the way. I'll type it in the chat box because there's a bit of a delay. Hi Sandeep, how are you today? Kosin, hello, good morning. Richard Rich, wonderful, thank you for letting me know you can hear me. And as well as Sandeep and Rav, wonderful. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Michael Gibbs, and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects. And I like to come on once a week whenever I have the opportunity to really connect with the community so I can do anything I can to guide you in your career. I know many years ago when I started my career, I did what everybody else did. I started looking for sources of information from everywhere, and I ran in three different directions, and I worked so hard, literally so hard, and learned a lot of the wrong things, and it took me a lot longer. So I'm here to do anything I possibly can to assist you. So if you want to be a cloud architect, a cloud engineer, or any of these cloud careers, or even network architect careers or network engineering careers, feel free to ask any question you like, and I'll do everything I can to help get you to your goals. Does anybody have any cloud architect career or any type of tech career questions for me? Well, I know there's a huge delay, plus I know people are typically shy about asking that first question. So whoever asks first, I'm sure that's when questions will start popping in. But I'm here, and I'm thrilled to do anything I can to help you. I've been in this architect world for literally 25 years. And let me tell you, it has been a wonderful, magical experience. You know, as a network engineer, as a network architect, as an enterprise architect, as a cloud architect, it's all been wonderful. So Sandeep, you've got a quick one. Please ask the questions because we love to help around here. That is a really great question, Sandeep. How important is it to remember the cost of all services? I wouldn't remember any of them at all, Sandeep. In fact, the names of services and the cost of services completely change. I, as an architect, worry about designing the end-to-end system. You know, meet with that client. What are their business, legal, technical requirements? What are their goals? From there, I start evaluating the current things that they actually have, map it all down, and then try and draft a solution. Now, when we draft a solution, typically speaking, if I was doing the cost, and typically speaking, I'm not, Sandeep, what I would actually do is I would go to the AWS webpage and I would literally manually look at the cost for every single service. And then I'd run some sort of statistical analysis to try and figure out the cost based on utilization of their network bandwidth, based upon current and past experience. So if I were to do that, I would get these big estimates, and then I would cost it out. Now, realistically speaking, Sandeep, I've been an architect for 25 years. And as an architect, you typically take those client meetings, you typically do those designs, and when you get back, you may have much more junior people like inside sales reps, for example, or inside sales engineers, systems engineers, and maybe even some junior cloud engineers. They can go to the AWS webpage and can literally help you cost it out. So you as an architect, if you're doing a small solution, like a simple website with maybe like 25 or 50 servers, you can do it yourself. But as an architect, you may find yourself in an environment, Sandeep, where literally you're going to be dealing with 20,000 remote locations, 50,000 subnets, 50,000 servers, 1,000 load balancers, and very complex security environments. And this is going to take a team, Sandeep, of literally 50 people or more to try and put something like this together. And it could literally take 6 months of evaluation. And since the cloud architect, those enterprise architects are the most expensive people on the team, typically you're going to use somebody that's much cheaper. I mean, a good cloud architect can earn $150 an hour easily. And it doesn't take a $150 an hour person to literally stare at a computer screen and check a price manual. So typically you can use like a more junior engineer for that. So Sandeep, I hope I answered your question there. And if you have a further question or a subsequent question to that, let me know. Alonzo, good welcome and good morning. So Rav, Sing Sung, this is more about careers than specifically any kind of AWS service. But typically speaking, people are using simple workflow solutions or step functions because they have a sequence of events to do. For example, I upload a file into S3, and let's say it's raw, uncompressed video. And then perhaps I'm using like a simple workflow solution or a step function to basically I upload my file, and that then basically sets off a Lambda function, and that Lambda function might say send a message to the customer that says I've got the file. And then another step might be send it to a compression algorithm for rendering to basically take it from raw video to basically say use a H.265 codec. And then from there I'd have another Lambda function that could take it to a transcription service that could burn captions into my thing. And from there I could use another step function to basically drop it off in an S3 bucket, kick off an SNS messaging system, and then email, or along with SES, then email me, Mike, your video file is ready. So that's typically where you would do that, Rob. So I hope I helped you with that. Anna Keat, you're in a developer role. What should your first step to start a career in the cloud? Okay, Anna Keat. Anna Keat, please tell me what your goal career is in the cloud, as well as how many years you have as a developer. See, Anna Keat, there's lots of careers in the cloud. You could be a cloud developer. You could work on the DevOps world. You could be administration and maintenance, which is like SysOps. You can be a cloud engineer that builds it, or you can be a cloud architect that designs it. And they all have vastly different pathways to get you there. And I'd love to help you. So if you tell me your goal career, plus the number of years experience you have in the developer role, are you doing the coding? Are you a application architect? If you can let me know a little bit about that, then I can guide you. I just need to know your starting point and your end destination. That way I can give you guidance to get you straight to where your goals are. Now this is a great question from Guru Sharma. If a customer built a system architecture once, would they need that guy in the future? Oh, really great question. So here's the reality, Mr. Sharma. Most architects, or at least 50% of the architects like me, do the following. We meet with a client, we do a consultation, we do a design, and as soon as we're done the design, we hand it off to a clean cloud engineers to build it. And they build it, and then it goes off to a bunch of SysOps people to maintain it, and we're out of there, and we're done. That's 50% of what we do as architects working for vendors. It's a one-time design. We get in, we design it, and we move out. We don't do anything else with it until 6 months later or a year later, the customer wants something more. So, and then I'll get back to you, Anakit, after this, now that I know your goals. So, in many cases, for example, Mr. Sharma, we are just doing our designing, getting out of there, and moving on to the next customer, and moving on to the next customer, and moving on to the next customer. Most of my career was spent that way. Now, I have worked as an architect for an organization. And see, here's the thing, Mr. Sharma. When it comes to being an architect for a big global organization, there's no such thing as one project. When you're dealing with a big bank, for example, or one of these big global companies, they're always trying to innovate. So, for example, the project might now be, connect to the cloud, to 3 different clouds to add some redundancy and security and failover capability. But you know what the next one could be? It could be, wow, let's do this hosted voice over IP project and voice-enabled contact center. And then the next project could be, if we did this, we can increase revenue by XYZ%. So, Mr. Sharma, for companies that do hire architects, they're big and global. There's going to be one design for an architecture. There's going to be another design and then another design. And when you're working on one of these roles, let's say you're working for a bank versus a cloud provider, you'll do predominantly architecture work. Say you're at a bank and you're doing predominantly architecture work. The first project might be dealing with finance fees. 6 months later, there could be a machine learning project. 3 months later, after that, there could be something else. So there's always going to be a design and a design and a new design. And these big companies that leverage technology to competitive advantages are constantly looking for new designs. So if you join an AWS, or you join a Cisco, or you join a Palo Alto, or an Oracle, or a Dell, or an IBM, or any of these big cloud companies like Google, as well as AWS and Azure, any of those cloud providers, you do one design, you move on to the next, you move on to the next. This is a customer-facing role, often sales-related. Now, if you work for a bank, you're basically the designer, the designer, the designer, the designer. Now, if you're working for a company, the role's a little different. Since you're the ultimate designer of the solution, you're most likely the most knowledgeable person about how the end-to-end systems designs work. So then, Mr. Sharma, if and when you're working at one of these big companies like a bank, here's what will ultimately happen. They'll have an operations center that'll do like a SysOps center that'll do tier 1 support, tier 2 support, and tier 3 support. Then after that, when things break, it'll go to the cloud engineers, and basically the junior engineers moving all the way up to the senior engineers. Now, once that's done, it may go to the architect. You may be providing like a tier 8 or a tier 9 or a tier 10 support because you're the designer, you know how things work. So I hope I answered your question there, Mr. Bagaru Sharma, because I've worked as an architect in both, and that's typically the role. If you've got more questions there, I'm happy to answer. So I'm going to go to Anakit, and then after that, if you've got any questions, Bagaru Sharma, or follow-up questions, please let me know, and I'll do anything I can to help you. So, Anakit, if you're just out of school and you want to be an architect, you actually have to know what the architectural role is, Anakit, and then I can give you the plan. An architect role is a hybrid between an business executive and a cloud engineer. And what I mean by that is, it's not just as an architect, you can't just know the technology. You can't work that way. It's a very different skill set. So the reason architects are typically more senior people, and I've taken junior people and gotten them architectural roles straight out of school. But the reason architects are such a senior role is an engineer sits behind the computer all day. And they're very smart, they do a great job. But the architect is customer facing. The architect is going to need to be in front of the CEO a lot and ask business strategic questions. The chief information officer, the chief operations officer. You're going to have to do ROI modeling to convince the chief financial officer, for example, that the value of your solution is greater than the cost of the solution. So that's the business side. This requires executive presence, executive communication skills, emotional intelligence. Basically, MBA level business knowledge plus good, strong communication skills. Now on the technical end, the architect needs a very different skill set than the engineer. An engineer, for example, will do the following. The engineer will know the name of the service, and they will build that service. The engineer will be the master of a service like S3, and they'll be configuring it all day. The architect is not going to be thinking about that. They're going to be thinking about, how do I go to that customer? When I'm in that customer and I'm evaluating the systems, I may need to have a 22-hour discussion about somebody's storage platform. And I may need to ask questions for a week straight to figure out the compute platform. And it may take me 6 weeks to figure out what's going on in the network. And then I'm going to design something as an architect. I am not going to build it, I'm going to design it. So there's no programming, there's no coding, there's no configuration, there's no Terraform for the architect, there's no sysops, none of that stuff. It's design. So when you're asking that question about how do you do this, and we have a program directly for this, you need to be an expert of the network and you need to be an expert of the data center. And here's why. The cloud native stuff, accepting your certification courses, is pretty much dead. What ultimately happened is a cloud provider kicked out some people from their cloud, and all the CEOs that I've spoken to said, we no longer want cloud native, we want lift and shift and hybrid clouds and multi-clouds. So you got to be good at the network and you got to be good at the data center. So how do we train our people? Let me tell you that. We have, with our people, a 250-hour program. I'm going to tell you how we train ours, because if you do it on your own, you could try that. But I'll tell you the strategy of our program. We have a 250-hour program. And in our program, twice per week, we do live architecture training. And we give our students projects, and feel free to take a free architecture challenge. My associate Chris will pop that there. And we're also going to have a free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar tomorrow. My associate Chris will make sure you have the links in that, although I think I see it in the chat box. But what we do is twice per week, we do live training for 3 hours straight. And we do architecture work on that live training. And then in between classes, you know what we do? We have students actually work on the business, the technical. I'll learn about the regulatory environment and the tech requirements, because you got to know the tech also. Then we teach our students the network and the data center, and we teach them in depth. So I'm going to teach you how we do it ourselves, and then afterwards I'm going to teach you how you can do it on your own. So that's what we do. And then we have our students actually master the network and the data center. And here's how we do it. We have students come in, they VPN access into our data center. And on our data center, first thing we need to do is teach our students what makes the cloud possible. So our students work with every piece of technology that makes the cloud possible, because that's all the stuff they're going to bring to the cloud from the data center. So our students work with server virtualization, build containers. They build a Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP web stack. Our students set up Active Directory, learn IAM. Our students set up NFS, network file system shares. Our systems set up Samba shares to interact with Windows systems if and when you use them. And our students build a cloud. That's right, they build a cloud. See, if you put on your resume, I know how to set up an S3 bucket, no employer cares. I use an 8-year-old for that. Nobody's going to pay someone $150,000 to $300,000 a year to click 3 boxes in a management console and say EC2 when it's done. No one cares. That's simple, simple, simple work. But the architect is, and there's introductory jobs for them. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the architect is a designer. So these are the kind of things you need to do, and you need to learn the emotional intelligence, the presentation skills, the emotional intelligence training, negotiation skills, and ROI modeling to go from technical, fresher to one of these roles. Now, if you're with us, it's completely covered, all in one price, which is about the day's pay for a cloud architect. Now, if you are on your own, you can still do this. You can go to Dell and read about storage, Dell EMC. I'd say it's going to take a few hundred pages of reading to understand storage, but you can get about half of that from Dell and the other half of it from IBM. Then you must learn virtualization in depth. If you're with us, it's covered. But if you are not, go to VMware, read a couple hundred pages of documentation, you'll start to learn virtualization. Then containers, you got to know containers, because virtualization and containers are the pure compute platform in the cloud. So with us, it's covered. But if you are not with us, here's what you do. You go to Docker and Kubernetes, and they'll read a lot about containers. And then, guess what? You need to know the network. And if you're with us, we teach it heavily, because I'm one of the original Cisco certified internet experts. But if you're not, go to Cisco. There is a lot of good books. Read all of the books related to the Cisco certified network professional. It's a couple thousand pages of reading, but that will teach you the network. I promise you, you'll be good at it after that. I read 75,000 pages just to pass my CCIE, but that 2,500 to 3,000 pages for the CCNP will give you good knowledge. Now you need to learn firewalls. Where can you find information on firewalls? Very simply. You can go to Palo Alto, Fortinet, Cisco, and Checkpoint and read a lot about firewalls. Again, 500 to 1,000 pages. You've got to know this stuff. We teach it, but if not, now you got to learn VPN concentrators. Where are you going to learn that? Same place. Cisco, Fortinet, Palo Alto. And guess what? You now need to understand IDS and IPS system. You can do that. We teach that. But if you're on your own, go back to Cisco and Palo Alto and Juniper. They've got some good documentation on that. Microsoft Active Directory for IAM. Learn about TACAC servers, Radius servers, and of course Microsoft AD, because all these types of authentication are typically used. And then when you're done that, build a cloud, or learn how the cloud works. Read about the Nutanix cloud. Read about the OpenStack Ansible cloud. Read about the Google cloud, the Azure cloud, everybody else's cloud, because as a cloud architect, you're going to be and that just covers the introduction. That covers the basic business piece. Then you're going to need to learn design. Now, we teach design to our students, but if you're on your own, the TOGAF way is a good way to learn design, because you've got to learn architecture. We teach it because we've been architects for a quarter of a century. But if you're not with us, that's how you do it. Now, the technical components, the labs. If you're with us, it's all included. But if you're not with us, buy yourself a 16-core Xeon server with a minimum of 128 gigs of RAM and 3 fast SSD drives in a RAID 0 configuration to give yourself the oomph and the speed that you need. Or you could put an NVMe drive and in there do the same labs I told you that we did. Server virtualization, containers, firewalls, VPN devices. Build it all. And when you're done that, set up Active Directory, NFS shares, Microsoft or Samba shares to connect to Microsoft clients. And then build yourself a cloud. Build yourself an OpenStack Ansible cloud. So they're there. Now, if you're with us, it's covered. If you're not with us, take some emotional intelligence training. The work of Daniel Goldman is extraordinary. Take some presentation skills training. Jerry Weissman did a really great one. Speakeasy does a really good one. These courses are a couple $1,000s, but they will make a huge impact in your career, so take it. And if you're not with us, get some interview training. Hire an interview training coach. This stuff is super important. We cover it with our people. If you're not, do that. And again, even if it costs you $1,500 for an interview coach, it's worth it. The average cloud architect earns $600 a day. And if an interview coach saves you 3 months of bad interviews to get you hired, it made you a whole lot of money. Of course, all this stuff is covered in ours, but there. And then when you're done, learn how to negotiate. Why? Because if you negotiate a $30,000 higher salary, it's over the course of 30 years, it's $1 million different here to your career. So don't go to the Harvard Negotiation Project. That's what we use. The work of that and the work of Chris Voss and others. So that's how you would do that. So that gives you the way that you could train on your own. That's exactly the formula of our system. So I hope I answered your questions. If you've got more questions there, Anakit, it's perfectly fine. The next question that I see is from Dineshwar. Oops, I don't know what happened there. And it says skills required for cloud engineer. Now, a cloud engineer is very, very different than a cloud architect. A cloud engineer is the person that builds the systems. So a cloud engineer needs to be good at understanding how to configure the cloud. A cloud engineer should also know about the network and the data center because they're going to be dealing with those types of technology that have just been virtualized. A cloud engineer is going to need to automate things. So a cloud engineer is going to have some very good scripting skills. Things like Python will be pretty much necessary. A cloud engineer is also going to be working with some automation kinds of things. And then Mission Valley, Valerie, I'll get yours is a very simple question. I'll get to it soon. So they're going to be working on automation. So in addition to the scripting, Terraform, CloudFormation, these are kind of things that are very essential for the cloud engineer. The cloud engineer is going to have to be very familiar with all the logging and monitoring tools because they're going to be working with it for all the time and forever. So there's the kind of the skills that are necessary for the cloud engineer, whereas the cloud architect is much more customer facing in design. Hope I answered your question. So Rob, what is the strategy for calculating the estimation for a product and while designing a solution? Rob, I design the solution the way I want it to be. Basically, I ask the customer their questions, their business, legal, technical challenges, what their goals and dreams are. From there, I evaluate the current systems. From there, I design a solution. Now, when I'm done designing the solution, I find some junior engineers to basically cost the solution by going to the AWS pricing tools. But if I was a brand new cloud architect and I was not at that senior level, like the distinguished level architect or the enterprise architect where I've lived for the last 15, 20 years, I'd probably be doing something such as, what's the word I'm actually looking for? I'd probably be doing some of the costing myself. And the reason I would be doing some of the costing myself would be because it's one of those really important kind of things to do. And if I was junior, I would not have the staff around me to do this work for me. Now, that's kind of the basics of the things that we actually do. But if you've got any more questions regarding that, Rav Singh Song, I'm happy to answer them. LJE Ochuka. How can one land a job as a junior cloud engineer after getting the solutions architect associate? I hate answering this question, LJE. And the reason I hate answering this question is, in our experience, well, before I answer that, LJE, do you have any experience working in the technology field? Because if you have experience, it's going to change my answer. And if so, LJE, what type of experience do you have? So that's kind of the difference. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for your answer, because I want to help you, LJE, and I can definitely guide you, but the answer is going to be different based upon your things. So Mission Valley, what is the difference between a cloud architect? Okay, so LJE, you have no experience. Okay, then I'm going to be totally honest with you. It's near impossible to get any kind of a cloud job with just the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate. I mean, near impossible. So near impossible that when we work with students, we make completely sure they have a certification of the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Professional at minimum, and then we typically get some specialties and we teach so much about the network and the data center. It is that hard, LJE. So that's why we created this program. What happened is I had basically interviewed 1,000 people that were AWS certified. Typically, many of them had multiple levels of certifications, like 4 or 5 of them, or even the Certified Solution Architect Professional. And after watching that, I couldn't hire a single one of them. And then I understood exactly why people couldn't get hired. See, the current certification courses people are taking are doing the following. They're teaching them the name of the service and how to configure it, but they're not teaching them how to design it. What is design? Meet with a client, ask a bunch of questions. Design. There's no configuration, and these courses are so off. The best way I can describe it is I used to practice medicine as a nurse practitioner before I went into tech, approximately 25 years ago. And if you were going to train a doctor and say, here's your pills and here's your dosages, and teach them nothing else, like a pharmacy tech, which is an important person, but that's a pharmacy tech. But then you trained the doctor with his pharmacy tech skills, and then the patient came in, and the doctor didn't know how to ask the questions to make to see what's going on with the patient. The doctor didn't know how to examine the patient, and the doctor didn't know how to diagnose the patient. All they knew was they had a yellow pill, a red pill, and a blue pill at 300 milligrams. That's the certification training. So we've done the following. We have a completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional course that is more architecture based than engineering based. Chris from my team will put it in under the name Go Cloud Architects, and he will list the link to the completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. Now, if you want to learn more about how to become an architect and you're in a rush to become an architect, and I would be in a rush if I was you, we'd love to talk to you. There's a link, there's a free webinar we're having tomorrow, as well as I'm going to leave our number of our corporate office, and you can ask questions. We have a program that's not free, but it's about 1 day's pay of a cloud architect, and it teaches everything people need to know to get hired. And we even have 150 recruiters when people are done to try and help them find jobs. So, that's what we do. And if you want to ask questions, we can work with you. But it's a 250-hour training program as a rule to take someone that's already AWS certified and then get them ready to be hireable. And part of that is the Certified Solution Architect Professional, which is about 10 hours of training or 12 hours of training, and we provide that completely free, that training. Chris from my team will pop the link to that in the chat box, and so to make sure that you guys all have access. But that's seriously what it takes. I wish there was a simpler solution. The good news is you have a public relations background that's going to help you a lot, and a user research background and a marketing/advertising background. 30% or to 50% of the cloud architect's job is related to communication. When you design the solution, how do you package it? How do you make it attractive to the customer? How do you do an ROI model to show that if a customer spends $100 million on a solution, the expected value of the technology that you're going to deploy that solution generates $400 million, so you can show that customer a 400% return on investment capital. Or you could calculate it based upon the average, the weighted average cost of capital, because organizations find that you often finance these things. So you could say, with a monthly payment of $1 million a month, you're receiving 300 to 500 times that in return. But you've got to be able to do it that way. So let me go down and ask the next question along the way. So the next question that I saw is, what is the difference between a cloud architect and a solutions architect? I'm going to do two things for that. First, I'm going to put a link to a video that I created, and then after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you. So I popped the link to the video that created this, and Rav Song, how can you access Sing Song, the details of the architect course that you offer? Chris will popped a link to that course at the top of the page, so it's directly there. And Chris can also pop a coupon for 20% off to the course. Actually, you can just pop a link to the course right now and a 20% off coupon, and then I'll go back to speaking. So, okay, so a cloud architect is, so let's look at the careers in order of escalation of career and salary. So if we go in a diagonal, at the bottom right, which is going to be the most technical and lowest paid position, that's going to be the cloud engineer. This person is going to be at the computer all day, working really hard, building things. They're going to work really hard, and they're the lowest paid of the bunch. Critical member of the team, but the lowest paid of the bunch. And the reason they're the lowest paid of the bunch is they're farthest away from the customer. So typically speaking, hard work, super detailed knowledge, relatively low pay compared to the architecture roles. The next role up the list, as we start moving towards higher salaries and more seniority, is the solution architect. The solution architect is someone that just knows AWS or just knows Azure. And they can work with one cloud and they know the cloud solutions and only the cloud solutions to design a solution for a customer. So I go to AWS. I know how to secure my systems with WAF and Shield and Knuckles and security groups. That's the solution architect. I only know AWS and I only know some of the stuff that's necessary. The solution architect is very technical on the one vendor they work on. So not as technical as the cloud engineer, but still relatively technical, and they're going to be experts on, say, AWS or experts on Azure, but they're really going to know that very well, and there they're at. Now, as you go higher, you become a cloud architect. And a cloud architect is a substantially more senior position than a solutions architect. A cloud architect can always work as a solution architect because it's like a junior cloud architect. And sometimes a lot of our students, their first jobs actually become solutions architects because maybe they're not quite senior enough to be a cloud architect yet. A lot of our students become straight cloud architects, but some of them have to take a detour as a solution architect for a year or two. So the difference between the cloud architect and the solution architect is the cloud architect has much better business skills. Much more business acumen. The cloud architect has a much better global understanding of everything that goes on. When that cloud architect meets with that executive at the customer and asks their business, legal, and technical requirements, that cloud architect knows what matters, what's in the best interest of the company. And that cloud architect will either say, keep everything in the data center, build a hybrid cloud by keeping a traditional data center and connecting it to a cloud, build a cloud internally like an OpenStack Ansible cloud or a Nutanix cloud and connect that to AWS, or build your own internal cloud and say, Google does the best job at artificial intelligence and machine learning. AWS does the best job at infrastructure. And Azure is the people that we can trust that nobody's going to kick us out of the data center if they don't like our mission. So a cloud architect can build an end-to-end solution, solve customer problems, has much more business acumen, and typically speaking is paid much more than the solution architect. Now, one step, but they're less technical in, say, AWS than the solutions architect. Most technical is that cloud engineer in the bottom right. Second most technical is going to be the solution architect, but they're going to be most technical in AWS, for example, or Azure. Now, the cloud architect is going to know a lot more about a lot more things, but they're going to be much more focused on the business side. And because they're going to be closer to the customer, much more focused on the business side, their salaries are going like this in this direction. Now, the last side of this, which is where I've spent half of my career, is what's called an enterprise architect. And an enterprise architect looks at the big picture of the business. And we spend a lot of our time at the executive level, maybe 30 or 40% of our time. And we're constantly exploring how we can use technology to improve the business's performance. Now, we are the least technical, although that's why of the bunch when we're enterprise architects, but we're the most business-oriented of the bunch as enterprise architects. And the salaries of these folks are the highest of the bunch because they're closer to the executive. So cloud engineer, bottom right, most technical. Solution architect, second most technical, but only knows one cloud. Cloud architect knows everything, how to tie all the systems together. And an enterprise architect, like a cloud architect that's a little less technical, but a little more business oriented. Those are the architect works. I actually dropped a link to the video in this course, but now you know. And I'm happy to answer any more questions. So I think I answered your question there, Ms. Valley. Okay, Meme, I've got a good question. Any advice on how to be articulate when explaining technical matters in interviews? You do present the answers very simply and clearly, but it's not an easy task. So, Meme, what a great question. The reason I find this so essential is it doesn't matter how good you are technically. If you can't get your point across, it will literally be near impossible to get the customers to adopt your solution or to get hired. So here's the way I like to do this. I like to start with what is the technology, how does the technology work, and why you would use it, and then give an example of a use case or two. So let's take this out and extrapolate an example. Let's say object storage, for example. Object storage is all over the place in the cloud. What is object storage? Object storage is a type of storage area network technology that is network-based storage. Object storage is very unique because data is taken and broken down into objects. Now, when data is broken down into objects, each object has something special about it. It has something called metadata, which is data about the data. Because there's data about the data in object storage, it enables you to do some pretty incredible things, such as search your large storage array for the vast amounts of data to find what you want based upon metadata. Looking at part of a file, because, for example, you don't only need to look at part of the file because you've got the metadata and you know exactly where it's at. Now, there are challenges with object storage, for example. Object storage doesn't work with files that don't change. Object storage is typically very low in performance. The reason you can't use object storage with files that don't change frequently is every time a file is modified, it creates a new version, which will fill up your object storage environment and cost a fortune because you're going to be filling it up with space. Now, object storage also can't be used by computer systems natively because it's a different kind of storage. And you couldn't store an operating system on object storage well because operating systems have files that get constantly changed temporarily, like swap files. And literally speaking, it could change 100,000 times in a matter of 30 minutes, and you would be done with your storage arrays with petabytes of data very quickly. But object storage is very useful for distributing software content, for example, integrating into a data lake, for example, because of all that metadata that you have. So that's the way I do it. I start with what is the tech? How does the tech work? Why do you use it? That works perfectly with the customer environment. Now, if you're asking me the second question of this, which is how do executives present technology? And how does a strategy consultant present technology? How does an enterprise architect or a cloud architect present the technology? Very simple. Engineers, not architects, engineers, if you ask them about a design, they're going to tell you all the technology, and then after about an hour or two, they'll get to the design. Architects, management consultants, business executives do it the exact opposite. Mr. CEO, our solution is what's called a hybrid cloud. We're going to make a cloud in your data center, and we're going to connect you to the cloud. By doing so, we can achieve 27% cost savings. We can also increase your revenue by XYZ%. The way this is going to work is we're going to use every asset you have, so we're going to leverage your investments. And then from there, we're going to add what's called auto scaling in the cloud. So if you need extra capacity, we can use it to the cloud. We can also create a disaster recovery environment to meet your business continuity plans. Here is a document. And here is a document for your technical team. And they can review it. We look forward to meeting you in about a week or two to discuss it. So this is typically the architect level of presentation. Solution first, and then all the substantiating evidence. Engineering presentation and substantiating evidence, and then the solution. It's the exact opposite for the architect. You got to flip it. These are very different skills, very different jobs. Hope I answered your question there, Amin. Regarding the Sanjal, I don't know anything about MuleSoft exams. We build careers. We're not really certification people. I do work with my people to get them certified solution architect professionals or Cisco certified network professionals or a CISSP or a CEH. When we do certifications in our organizations, we find the biggest certifications that get our people hired first and foremost, and then we skip all the other smaller certifications. That's our formula. We focus on the things that really build the most value for the least cost. We know this, and we have to be in a rush. And the reason we're in such a rush and we're so particular about our certifications is the average cloud architect earns $600 a day. Now, when somebody moves up towards that enterprise architect and senior, they don't earn $600 a day. They earn $1,200 a day or $1,500 a day. So this is big money. And because it's big money, if you're like, for example, a cloud architect and you're earning, say, $800 a day, if you don't work for 10 days, that's $8,000. So the speed to get you guys certified and the speed to get you guys hired is super important. At that average salary of $600 a day for the average cloud architect, if someone spends 3 months doing certifications that are not essential, that's a loss of $36,000 for the average. So I don't know enough about this certification. It's not a certification we recommend to our people. So I can't comment there. For us, it's Certified Solution Architect Professional is kind of the minimum level to the AWS Cloud. And then from there, we bolt on something for networking, something for databases, something for security based upon the person's goal career. Hope I answered your question. If not, please feel free to ask more. Raghu Sharma, I said that a company may design systems like ML. Well, guess what, Bhagaru Sharma? This is going to be normal. Architects work in teams. Yeah, and these companies, that it's not just one cloud architect that's going to know everything about everything. You hear that from certification providers that want to terrify you with the scope of knowledge, and they want to sell you 10 certification courses. I'm going to give you the reality. Here's life as an architect, and I've done this role for 25 years. I'm not making certification courses and imagining what the roles are like a lot of the certification providers. I've done this role for decades now. Here's what an architect team looks like. When you get a team for this, typically speaking, what you'll have is you'll have a cloud infrastructure architect like me, or two on your team. We're people that are experts at the data center and the network. So you're going to have a couple of us on the team. Then you're going to have a couple of generalists. They're people that know a little bit about a lot of stuff. Then you're going to have, say, cloud security people. And these are going to be CISSP or CEH grade people that are also cloud architects. Deep knowledge of security, deep knowledge of the cloud. And then separate from them, you're going to have some IAM people. And yes, I separated security from IAM, as does everybody in the architecture world. You'll have some cloud IAM people. Guess what? You're going to have some builders on your team, like cloud engineers. These are going to be the super smart people that know how to build this for you. So you're going to have some of them on your team. You're going to have some cloud data scientists on your team that are experts in machine learning. And the list goes on and on and on. You might even have some sysops people on your team. They're not even closely related to architecture, but why might they be on your team? To help you plan a long-term maintenance strategy solution. And you may even have some DevOps people on your team. And again, DevOps people are far removed from architecture. But, you know, architects like me need to consult DevOps people like them to figure out how to optimize software release cycles. So this is kind of the architect. Pick something, focus on it, and if you're an expert, not only will you get paid a lot more, but you will also build a much deeper career. So much so, the worst thing that I've seen people do for their careers is try and learn a little about a lot of things, because in the end they don't know enough about anything. I actually released a video today which talked about accelerating your career, and we talked about ways to specialize, either with the industry relevance or with regards to depth of knowledge or how to go to the leadership side. So Chris from my team can paste a link to that in the chat box. I'm just going down the list, so I promise I won't forget anyone. Robert Muta. Is it reasonable to start as a cloud engineer and work towards being a solution architect and then a cloud architect? Yes. Totally reasonable. Lots of people do it. But Robert, if I was you, I'd rather just train to be an architect. And here's the reason: the skill sets are very different. So engineer, super hands-on, super knowledgeable about the services themselves. Architect, super knowledgeable about end-to-end system design, end-to-end business, business strategy, lots more communication. So make sure, if you're going to try and go down the engineering path before you go to the architecture path, which is a totally appropriate thing to do, that you get substantial architecture training. It won't be feasible to go from engineer to architect. The more time you spend engineering, the better you get as an engineer, the deeper your knowledge gets into doing that detail-oriented work. What happens is you will build a brand. And that brand will basically be strong technical engineer. And you will have to work really, really, really hard to unbrand yourself to become an architect. The hardest people are the people with sysops on their certification, because people have this kind of operations perspective. It's not true, operations is critical. But they have the perspective of the operations people are stuck in a NOC. And then the engineers are the techies. And people get concerned, can techies actually become cloud architects? I will tell you personally, I was a victim of this earlier in my career. I was one of the first Cisco certified internet experts. And I wanted to move into, I'd been an engineer. I was an architect in my first job, took a principal consulting systems engineer role for another company, and wanted an architect job. And I was told every possible reason why I was too technical to be an architect. So what I literally had to do was to pretend that I didn't know engineering anymore. And I started wearing better suits. I started giving presentations. I started buying lunches just like executives. I started saying, I'm not sure how that works. Let me go bring in a specialty engineer. It took about 6 months and about $100,000 of bought lunches and drinks that I did, like which the company obviously paid for. And all of a sudden people forgot I was a good engineer and they saw me as an architect, and I moved into an architect role. So is it possible to become a cloud architect and then migrate to an engineer and then migrate to an architecture role? The answer is yes, I've done it, and many, many people will do it. But understand, you're going to have to work really, really hard to fight that engineer brand to try and look a lot more like a leader, someone that's more strategic, someone that's more business oriented. It should never be this way. Engineers are the people that build these things. Without the engineers, we have nothing. Just understand that's the perception in the industry, and the perception is much harder for sysops people because people think they're farther removed from the customer. So just understand that, and you can be good in either case. So, and Robert, typically speaking, the 16 to 20 week class that we have to how to become a cloud architect in the first place will still be required as a rule to get you to transition, for example, from cloud engineer to cloud architect in most cases, unless you do an MBA program or a TOGAF and take some emotional intelligence training courses, some executive presence courses, some presentation courses. You're going to have to do all that. Same as if you started now. Hope I answered your question. So Miss and Valerie, as a cloud architect, you're probably, or a solutions architect, you're probably not going to be doing any hands-on demos either. And you're never going to be doing a script. Architects are systems designers. So they're not going to be doing this. Now, as an architect, here's what the proof of concept works like. And I've done thousands of them in my life. I design the proof of concept, and then I have cloud engineers or network engineers actually build the proof of concept. And I'm the person that goes in, presents it, leads it, buys lunch, works hard to make sure the team that's doing the proof of concept is there. Architects are systems designers. And that's the reason I actually do these kind of things, because people, if they focus on the wrong skills, it makes it near impossible for them to get hired. And I want everybody to get the job of their dream. And their dreams. I want everybody to be happy. So, that's why I'm providing this information. Meme. Okay, that's a really good question. How do I remember these things? So, meme, I come from a medicine background, and I also come from a martial arts background. And I'm going to tell you the lessons I learned from these careers, which made me be able to do this easily. And I first started practicing martial arts, and I practiced martial arts for decades. I don't anymore because I was injured in a massive accident training with some commandos in another country, because I was invited to, but, is part of me. Here's what I learned in martial arts. The better your fundamentals are, the better you're able to do anything. In fact, Bruce Lee, who was probably the best martial artist of all time, said, "I do not fear a man that's practiced 10,000 kicks one time each. I fear the man that has practiced one kick 10,000 times." Now, when I practiced medicine, here's what I learned. You can go to school for 17 years. Now, for some reason, people think that getting 10x AWS certified is a great idea. You know what happens in medicine? You go to 4 years of undergraduate, 4 years of medical school, a 3-year residency, and then a 3 to 5 year fellowship to do anything interesting. And you know how much of a scope of practice you have? This much. For example, the heart is the size of my human fist, and there are more than 10 kinds of cardiologists just for the heart. So 17 years of school at an entry-level practice to do 1/10 of the heart. So that's the kind of knowledge you have and need to have to be an architect. You need to know that much about a moderate amount of things. So when people ask how I can speak immediately about server virtualization or containers or networks or any of these things, please understand, in my career, I've read no less than 200,000 pages of technical training material. Please understand, I've spent $250,000 on education specifically related to emotional intelligence, soft skills, presentation skills. I share all those lessons with my students in my low-cost program. And I try and share as many as I can for free. So when you have deep fundamentals and you understand the technology, and understanding the technology means what is the technology, how does it work, and why do you use it, and you get those strong fundamentals, I promise you, you can work anywhere, anytime. See, the first cloud I worked on was actually in 1999, and it was called Frame Relay. And the next cloud after that was called ATM. And the next cloud my team described, we created was VPLS. And then after that cloud, we were all consulting on the cloud providers about how to build a bigger and better cloud. So None of this stuff is new. And the reason I like to say get your fundamentals straight is it's all the same thing. 20 some years ago, I worked on what's called the BGP route reflector, which is how you accommodate non-transit routing with IBGP. And you go to AWS, and they talk about transit gateway or cloud hub. What do you think it is? It's the same 25-year-old technology. Nothing's changed. IAM, which is the new name for AAA, which used to be Authentication, Authorization, Accounting, which determined what the user could do, who was allowed into this, like who are you as the user, what you're allowed to do, and then logging it. That was 25 years ago. Now it's IAM. Nothing's changed. It's the same thing. So get your fundamentals down good. And that's why we work so hard with fundamentals on our students. Because let's say you're working on AWS and tomorrow you're told you're working on Google. If you understand what a NoSQL database is and you understand how it works and why organizations use them, it's irrelevant whether you choose to use Apache Cassandra, DynamoDB, Amazon Keyspaces, Google Cloud Bigtable, or pick your NoSQL database of your choice. If you understand what is a NoSQL database, how does it work and why you use it, you're always going to be prepared. So I hope I answered your question there, but that's how I typically do things. So Simon, will 2 months of studying for the Solution Architect exam generally be sufficient? Well, Simon, I need to know what kind of person you want to be. So I got that you've been a JS programmer, but if you want to be an architect, there's really no programming in there. Now, the structure that you learned in terms of how to code, and how there's like a beginning, a middle, and an end, and how you think about it or wireframe things out beforehand, that's very architecture related. But generally speaking, the Certified Solutions Architect Associate exam is not going to be enough. Even if you took the Certified Solutions Architect Professional exam, which again you could do in 2 to 3 months, that's typically not enough for most people. That is enough to basically teach you the names of the services and how it works. But you're going to need architecture training if you don't have it. And that means you're going to need to understand some network architecture, and that means data center architecture. Why am I always so hung up on the network and the data center? Most people don't really truly understand what the cloud is. The cloud is a data center and a network that's just been virtualized. That's it. So the cloud is a low performance network and a low performance data center compared to the traditional network in the data center because the overhead of the hypervisors and the control plane for the cloud. But the cloud is really agile. So what happens is people like me that are network and data center architects, they get called every day by the cloud providers, even without certifications. We need you. Why? Because we're doing the same job on the cloud as we have for the last 25 years. So if you're a developer, we could easily train you, and we'd happily do so. Or make sure you learn architecture knowledge. TOGAF teaches, generic architecture. It's a little bit too high of a level from our perspective, but at least they teach architecture. After you learn architecture from something like those, make sure you get a minimum of the Certified Solutions Architect Professional. You need to have, at minimum, Cisco Certified Network Professional level knowledge, like a VMware professional knowledge for the virtualization components. And you need kind of almost CISSP level security knowledge. They're the kind of the skills for the cloud architect, plus you must know storage. And I mean how it works, the original storage. And you must also know firewalls, securities, IDS, IPS systems. So when I train my students, I pretty much give them CCNP level security, deep network and data center work, and heavy duty security like a CISSP would learn because I spent so many years there. So if you're on your own, make sure you do those things. Make sure you work with network and data center technologies. And if you're coming from development, you need to spend a lot of time on soft skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence training. You can get it with us or you can get them on your own. We're probably 10% of the cost of what it would take to do it on your own because we're mostly a charitable mission. It's almost a business. We're a business, but we're half charitable mission, and that's why we charge what we charge, which is about 10% of what we should, because we really like helping people, especially because we've got lots of wonderful people in the developing world, and that's why we do what we do. But, these are the skills that you have to learn. Simon, if you've got more questions, please let me know in the chat box below, and I will get to you. Raghu Sharma, I'm thrilled you're asking questions. You're a student at university, and it's really totally unrelated to what you do. Completely agree, and that's why we're here. You can come here every Wednesday and ask questions, and we are thrilled. We just want to get you to your goals. So please ask questions. That's why we hold these things. We hold these things because when I was new, What did I do? I asked a bunch of people and they all gave me guidance and it was all in the wrong direction. 20 years ago, before I even had my first job, I spent almost $20,000 on certification courses and none of it was right. So please ask questions. That's why we make this. YuWiki, is there any relationship between a cloud architect and TOGAF? Well, yes and no. So here's what I mean by that. A cloud architect is an architect, meaning a systems designer. TOGAF is a generic architecture certification that teaches systems design. So if you're taught architecture properly in the first place, you don't need TOGAF. But if your only access to training is like one of these Udemy courses that you could find, or any one of the AWS Certified Solution Architect, Associate Professional, SysOps, DevOps kind of courses, there's no architecture training in there. That's all junior implementation engineer training. What is the name of the service and how to configure it? So if you're in a program like mine, you're covered. But if you're not in a program like mine, you are going to need architecture training. And TOGAF certification is not enough. But if you actually read all the TOGAF materials and you go through the TOGAF exams, and it's not the cheapest exam because it's one that can impact your salary in a good way, it will help bridge the gap between what you learn in certification training and what's actually necessary to be an architect. Again, it's only part of the way there. That's why we created our program. But at least it's something that will teach you architecture as opposed to just engineering. Cloud learner. If someone without any tech or cloud experience wants to start as a cloud security, should one become an infrastructure architect, get some experience, and then, okay. So cloud learner, here's how we train cloud security architects, and I'm working with at least 50 to 60 of them right now. When we train cloud architects, we have to teach the following. We have to teach the underlying technology of the network and the data center, because that's the cloud. If you don't understand this, you'll never be able to do a design. That's why it's near impossible for people that are just certified without experience to get hired. So you've got to learn the network and the data center. But see what goes on. Let's say you want to do security. Networking is half of your security. For example, IAM basically is somebody knocks on your front door and you determine whether to let them in or out, and what they can do inside your house. And then you keep track of it after the fact. That's IAM. Now, good security would be don't let them get to your house. And in the first place, by limiting routing. And then have a firewall which basically says if for some reason they got to you even though there's no path, block them. And then you'd put an IDS system, which is like a Navy SEAL or a British SAS commando, that says if anybody bad gets into your house, the commando shoots them or disables them or handcuffs them or whatever is necessary to keep them from attacking you. And then you would use like an access control as again blocking traffic on a subnet. And then you would use a host-based firewall, anti-malware protection, you disable unnecessary services on the servers, you patch them, etc., 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 long before you get to IAM. But if you don't know all of these technologies, it's going to be impossible to do the job. So that's why we teach networking to all, because if you don't have a network, nothing works. The network is the enabling technology of all. Now on the security side, when we work with people, all of our students get a hybrid between CCNA and CCNP level knowledge on the network side. All of our students get deep architecture knowledge of the data center and the technology. But for our security people, we've got to go further. We've got to get them huge security knowledge. What do I mean by that? We're talking about a CISSP for people that have experience in tech, because that's more of an architecture certification. And if we are not a CISSP, we typically use the CEH with the practical exam. It's not a cheap exam, but this is a deep exam. And one reason we use these deep exams are as follows. That CEH practical, not only is it a relatively challenging exam, but you actually have to prove you're capable. So you do a practical exam, it's proctored, and you actually have to hack into systems to prove you can do it. So with our cloud architects, when we train them, they typically leave our program with the following: a certified solution architect professional, as well as a CEH or a CISP. They're near completion of them. And then they learn the interview skills, the emotional intelligence, the presentation skills, the design skills, the security, and everything. So that's typically the way we do it. That's how we train people. We're in a goal. Our goal is speed. Cloud architect average $600 a day, much more for a good cloud security architect, because you now have two specialties that you're combining. So speed to get you there. So that's the fastest way we can do it. Pistol Grips logs. What are some ways you elaborate on your skills, technical soft skills, presentation skills, emotional intelligence on a resume? Well, great question. There's not a lot that you can do on your resume. Now, on the top line of your resume, we typically recommend in big, bold letters something that looks impressive about you to get people to read it. So for me, it's Mike Gibbs, MS, MBA, CCIE number 7417, Google Professional Cloud Architect, and maybe I list an AWS certification, maybe I don't. But typically that's the top line. Now here's your chance to get some of these things in there. Directly underneath that top line, you should have an executive summary. The executive summary is a place where you can talk about some of these things. So I might put, I'm making it up as I go along, so it's not going to be perfect. Accomplished technology professional with over 25 years architecture experience, experience in leading teams, experience in coaching and bringing out the best in others, experience designing global technology projects and designing and selling billion-dollar plus solutions. And in there, I hit a couple of things related to that. Now, in each section, Pistol Grips logs, what's actually going on is in the beginning of your describe. So, Go Cloud Architects, CEO for global training organization, responsible for all aspects of a business, including sales, marketing, training, coaching, education. Manage the staff of XYZ number of people. Now, in between these lines, what are you going to do? Present it at this global conference. Typically means you're a good presenter. Typically means achieved systems architect of the quarter. Again, showing the ability to go above and beyond. Technical skills. Worked with, I don't know, a partner organization. Let's say IBM or Cisco to design a billion-dollar solution for a global retail client. That's your technical skills. Closed a billion-dollar voice over IP data/wireless deal with the world's largest global clothing retailer, etc., etc. You got to list those things in there. And of course, if you've done training in these things, list it there as well. Hope I answered your question there, Pistol Grips logs. Sanker. Hi Gibbs, I'm doing great. How are you, Sanker? You're basically a network and security engineer. Great. Handling all day, handling with the day to day. Switches, routers, firewalls, IDS, IPS, F5, and you completed the CCP. You have a dilemma to switch your profile to switch my profile complete to cloud. What do you mean by profile, Shankar? Are you talking about a LinkedIn profile or something like that? And also, if you can let me know as a network engineer what you're doing. I mean, are you just configuring things such as putting an IP address and doing a no-shot on a port? Are you designing BGP policy? Are you doing traffic engineering? Are those kind of things. And from there, I can pretty much tell you what to do. We have strong feelings about the CCP, which we'll talk about once we know more. So Sankar, if you want to let me know, I will happily answer your questions. If I've missed any questions, because it gets a little overwhelming sometimes, watching a lot of people ask questions, please post it again, or Chris or my team can let me know. It's kind of hard and challenging to do that. So while I'm waiting for Sankar, if you guys don't mind leaving a like if you're enjoying the conversation, please do so. If you want to let me know that you're here by typing Cloud Architect in the chat box, at least I know you're here, you're awake, you're alert, you're oriented, because I want to make sure that we do anything we can to help you. Hi Stanley, Cloud Learner. Do you need any programming for an AWS job? Well, it depends, Cloud Learner, what the job is. As a cloud architect, you're not going to be coding. I've never coded in my 25-year architecture career at all. And the best people that I know that are architects have never coded in their entire lives. Most of them have a network background or a data center background, but none of them code. Now, if you want to be a cloud engineer, you need to code because you're going to be scripting certain things. And if you want to be a sysops person, again, a totally different career, you will need to be relatively good at coding You're going to understand the Terraform, infrastructure as code, all that kind of stuff. And if you want to be DevOps, you're going to have to know how to code and DevOps tools. But as a cloud architect, there's no coding if it's a true cloud architect job. So let me know if you're there by typing cloud architect in the box and leaving a like if you don't mind. And please feel free to share information on our channels and subscribe if you're not a member. No audio. Is audio, can anybody else hear me? Okay. Thank you for letting me know, Rob Sing Song, because we get worried when people say they can't hear. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for all letting me know that you're here. Thank you for leaving a like if you felt appropriate. Please feel free to share. And thank you for letting me know you're alive with the word Cloud Architect. So Cloud Learner, I hope I answered your question. Stanley Asante, hello, and it's wonderful to have you here. Alex, I actually don't know what a Pokemon is. I'm not really sure I can actually answer that, although it sounds like something that would be fun. I wish I had more time, Alex, to kind of learn things, to let you know the way I live my life. I typically spend about 2 to 3 hours a day, every day, reading and training on the most current things. I typically spend about 5 hours on the phone with my students each day. Then I typically teach some classes with my students during the day. And then when I'm not doing that, I'm answering questions, doing content development, doing live streams and free things to help the cloud community. So I just never really had a chance to know even learn what a Pokemon is. Robert Muta, what certifications are needed aside from the pro? Well, Robert, like I said, certification is 10% of the process. Okay, so Des90, I had actually answered that question earlier, but don't you worry. I'm going to answer it a second time for you. Alex, what happened to my hair? Let's just say that over time you get older. You either get grayer or you lose more of it. So the more work you do in the world, pretty much, I don't have a chance to follow the news, Alex. All I do is teach cloud architects and work careers, and I don't have a minute of the day that's not dedicated towards building my students' careers, communicating with my students, developing training materials, bringing in or speaking to the best industry experts or CEOs that I know in order to help our clients achieve the most success. I don't watch the news. Then again, I tend not to watch the news anyway because it's negatively biased and I feel like it can impact your happiness. So Des, don't worry, I'm going to go through it and I'm thrilled to have you here. So we're happy to answer these questions. We love the questions and we love when you guys come, and we know, for example, Des, that not everybody can be here. So Des, let me answer your question. What is the difference between a cloud architect and a solutions architect? A solutions architect is like a very, 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 very junior cloud architect. So here's the way it works. So at the bottom, we're going to go in a diagonal corner, and we actually created a video for this, which my associate Chris just pasted. But really what's going on here is at the bottom right, let's say we have a diagonal graph, bottom right going up at a 45-degree angle. At the bottom right, we have the cloud engineer. Now, the cloud engineer is the most deeply technical person of the bunch. And so Alex, I have no idea where you're actually headed from here, but thank you for your attendance. So the cloud engineer is the, is the most deeply technical of the bunch. The cloud engineer is the systems builder. They are farthest away from the customer. They are the technically people that know the most, but let's understand they are the builders. These people are super strong, technically capable. They work the hardest. Unfortunately, they're also the lowest paid because they're very, very far from the customer. So the next level up as the solution architect. The solution architect is an expert of the services of a cloud provider. Maybe they know AWS or they know Azure. They know how to come up with a solution basically using AWS only cloud native solutions. So a solution architect would basically know how to take a customer and secure their systems with WAF and Shield and all the AWS services. So pretty technical on AWS, not as technical as the cloud architect, and 50% of their career, 40-50% of their career is business. Now, as you move up, the next level up is actually what's called the cloud architect. Now, the cloud architect is an end-to-end systems designer. The cloud architect basically is a person that will meet with the client. They will get all their business, legal, technical, and regulatory requirements down. From there, they will design a solution. Now, that solution may be in the data center. It may be data center connected to the cloud. It may build a cloud in the data center and connect that cloud to a cloud. It may be connect to multi-clouds, or it may be keep the data center completely, or keep the data center and say AWS provides the best infrastructure and use them for infrastructure. Google does the best machine learning, artificial intelligence. Use Google for that one. And Azure, the people that we can trust that if they don't like our message, we're not going to get kicked out of the data center because Azure's apolitical. So we might be doing a multi-cloud as a cloud architect, but as a cloud architect, what we're doing is we're working really hard to design the end-to-end solution for the customer. So these people are less technical on AWS, for example, than a solutions architect, but they know a lot more about end-to-end systems design and how to solve customer problems through technology. Now let's go one more level up. That's the enterprise architect. Now this is the least technical of the bunch. These people, the enterprise architects, are also the most business-oriented of the bunch. And because they're the most business-oriented of the bunch and they spend most of their time at the customer executive level, they earn the most. So engineer, solutions architect, cloud architect, enterprise architect. That's typically your career path in terms of salary and as well as respect that you achieve in the organization and capability. Now, every one of these roles are equally critical. They're just different. I'm just telling you how you get the best career. Hope I answered your question there, Desnandi. If you want more, please, please, please ask. We're thrilled to help you. Mission Valley, as a solution architect, you need managerial skills. You need extreme managerial skills. The solution architect, the cloud architect, and the enterprise architect require more managerial skills than any other role. And the reason I say these require such strong leadership skills is this following. First, you're going to have that executive communication to close deals with the customer. Totally true. There. And then from there, you're going to be managing a team of engineers and sysops people and DevOps people, but they're not going to work for you. See, as a regular manager, if somebody's on my team and they do a bad job, I can just fire them. So people are going to be motivated to do a good job. But as a solutions architect, guess what? You're going to manage them, but they don't work for you, so you can't discipline these people. So you're going to have to use your charm, your charisma, your executive presence, your emotional intelligence to manage a team of people that don't work for you. I will tell you, I've been both a straight leader and an architect, all kinds of architects, all the way from a solution architect all the way to an enterprise architect in my career. And when we're dealing with that, we have extreme management skills required. That's why I typically say you need MBA level management skills, and we teach that in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program because they are that critical, just that critical. Hope I answered your question there. Now, Stanley, I see you asked a question going from database and you want to transition to the cloud. So what kind of a job do you want on the cloud, Stanley? And that will determine what you need to do to transition. So please let me know. So Pistol Grips Rob is someone that's been a student as most of your life, someone that doesn't have my level of professional experience. How do you highlight your strengths? In your particular case, you're going to have to do a lot. You're going to have to do a lot more of those kind of labs that I told you about. So you're going to be building your own cloud. You're going to be building your own LAMP stacks. You're going to have to put all this stuff down. And you're going to have to do lab after lab after lab. Now, in your case, particularly speaking, say on those Mondays and Friday calls that we have, when you're done those calls and I actually help you guys design a solution, an end-to-end solution, and you typically pick 2 different cloud providers, then when you're done, go build it on those cloud providers. So document the design, document the problem, document the design, and document the configuration of the cloud that you know how to do it all. Why? As a cloud architect, you're not going to be doing it, but you still have to prove that you have experience. So I want all those labs there, Daniel. And Daniel, if it comes down to it, in your particular case, if we need to find you somewhat of an internship when you get a little more experience, we'll do that to get you some things. So let's make sure we just cover this first things first, and then after that, we'll see what we can do, since you have access to those features. Rob Sung, what is the most common scenario we're going on in the market these days? So, Rob, that is an incredibly great question. And if you asked me this question a year ago versus this question now, they'd be totally different answers. In today's world, 90% of all that we do as cloud architects is simply take a system from the data center and migrate it to the cloud. Literally, completely. So if you've got a virtual machine in the data center, you basically take that virtual machine, you import it to the cloud. Lift and shift, literally nothing. None of this cloud native stuff. It's almost all gone based upon a decision the cloud provider did. So just lift and shift. Take everything you have in the network and data center and just move it to the cloud. That's why this network and the data center stuff is so important. LTV, you have the opportunity to speak with me on Monday and Friday during the classes. We spend lots of time answering these questions. If you need to reach out to us, reach out to Chris Johnson on our team through the Slack channel, and he will get 90% of what needs to be done taken care of. And if you still need help beyond that, Chris will get me connected to you. So we'll get you covered in either case. Emir El Basser, there is no programming in being a solution architect. So if you wanted to be a cloud engineer, lots of programming. If you wanted to be a sysops person, even more programming. If you want to be a DevOps person, even more programming. A true cloud architect, a real one that's a real architect role, not something masquerading as an architect role, is only design. Meet with the client, design a solution. Meet with the next client, design a solution. It's kind of a cross between a really technical tech person, a sales rep, and a business executive. So there's no coding, El Bashir, in a real cloud architect role. Montepai, you've been learning about AWS and building projects on GitHub for a year. You have started applying, but you've not received any sponsors. So, Montepaj, why are you working on GitHub? Do you desire to be a DevOps engineer? Because if you desire to be a DevOps engineer, GitHub is appropriate. If you desire to be an architect, don't spend any time with anything related to software development. Architects are systems designers. You need to know the network and the data center. In fact, Montepaj, it's so common that we find people dedicating a year or more to things that aren't even related to the job based upon what they've read in rumors and forums. It made us so upset that we created an entire training program. But we also have a completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. And here we will go through everything you need to know, what hiring managers desire, what the actual job is as described by the people that pay for the cloud architects, the CIO, what you need to learn, how you need to study, how you need to prepare. And I think Chris from my team just pasted it in the chat box. So we will cover all those things. We'll do it tomorrow. And then you can literally ask questions live, one-on-one for at least an hour. And because of that, I want to invite you to come tomorrow. And that way, because it sounds like you're going to need a very detailed answer. But, if you want to tell me your cloud career, for example, if you said you wanted to be a DevOps engineer, I'd say Git is great. I just don't know your goal career. But I can tell you Git and architecture don't go together. And Rav Singh Song, when I told you before that the average move is just basically a lift and shift from the cloud to the data center, it can be partial, it can be complete, but it's typically just taking the virtual machines in one environment and literally just moving it to another. All those cloud native cool things, all the refactoring of applications, auto scaling, code infrastructure as code, most of that went away after one of the cloud providers made a decision a year ago that involved kicking somebody out of the cloud that was using cloud native, and it made him go bankrupt. So after that, for the most part, everything's just lift and shift. Okay, so Stanley, I want to make sure you're the person that was working on. Sync signs, sinkers. As I'm going through these one by one, and if I miss anything, please let you know. Shankar, you worked as an ISP, as a network engineer dealing with BGP, meaning designing BGP or just configuring BGP and changing IP addresses and adding static routes, configuring BFT, configuring Cisco routers, OSPF, IPS upgrade. See, Shankar, as long as you truly understand BGP, and when I say understand BGP, I'm not referring to being able to configure a community or being able to configure a distribute list or being able to create an aggregate route or a summary route. I'm referring to thinking about it, okay, if I want to manipulate outbound traffic and I've got a Cisco router, I could manipulate the weight versus the local preference versus prepaid AS pass. If you know how to do that kind of stuff, and you probably do if you've worked in ISP for years, you have great network background for this. Because you understand NAT, you understand QoS, you understand VLANs, you understand 802.1q tagging. You're halfway there, Shankar is. You are in an extremely good position. From there, now you need to learn the data center, which you may know, but if you don't, we're talking about server virtualization, containers, firewalls, load balancers, Microsoft Active Directory, object storage, block storage, file storage, NFS, Samba storage, and then when you're done, you've got a real data center background. Then I would encourage you to build the cloud, because we make all our students build the cloud. That's how they learn the cloud, because these are kind of things. So that's kind of giving your network and data center background. Then, if you're doing design already, you're in great shape. But if you're not, if you're more the configuring person, you need to be more like the network architect that designs the end-to-end solution, which is something I did for years. And oh, by the way, most of the network architects that I know went straight to the cloud. You know how much training we needed to go from network architects to cloud architects? Zero. In most cases, the cloud providers were hiring senior network architects and principal network architects with zero cloud background and zero experience. Why? Because we'd all been working on clouds anyway for as long as we can remember, and we knew system design and nothing works without the network. So you are in great shape. Learn the data center. But if you are not delivering presentations to executives every day, get good at it. If you're not in front of the CEO, you need training to be in front of the CEO, because that's going to be part of it. You're going to need to learn how to document. And I mean document for executives as well as technology professionals. You need to do that. Presentation skills constantly. Emotional intelligence training definitely needed. Leadership training, because you're going to be managing people, so critical. So that's kind of the path. I mean, we have a program for that, but you could do those are the things that you would do. Again, we have that free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar, and we'll teach you how to make that transition on that webinar. So I invite you to join. Chris from my team will make sure you have access to that. Yeah, I did the GCP Professional Cloud Architect in 2 days too, which is, I don't really work on wearing, exams themselves. I work on the actual knowledge piece, because these exams are relatively easy to just pass. I say that meaning like you're a network engineer, so that covers 50% of these exams anyway. But I think you've got a good foundation. But it's all those design things if you don't have them, and those communication things and presentation things. If you're not doing them every day, you need to make sure you train them. Now, would I convert your LinkedIn profile to cloud? Not yet. I don't know exactly what kind of cloud background things you've done. I don't know how many cloud architect certifications you have. I don't know the level of certifications you have. And I don't know what your resume looks like to try and tease out cloud things. So I wouldn't change anything until I actually knew what you had on there. So I can't advise you without more content. But I do have a video on this channel, which Chris can put, about how to build a cloud architect resume, as well as another one about avoiding common cloud architect resume mistakes. These are mistakes that I see on everybody's resume. I mean, so many of them when they're new especially and they want to move to the cloud, but they haven't worked in the cloud. There's certain things that Kiwi hiring managers not to interview this person or not to trust them. And I see it on 90% of all cloud architect resumes. Chris will put the how to build a cloud architect resume first, or solution architect resume, and then after that he'll put the common resume mistakes to avoid. Hope I can help you with that. And Al TV, Chris will sync up with you. He will get anything that you need answered, and if Chris can't get your thing, he will get me on the phone and we'll speak immediately. So we'll get you solved instantly with any questions you may have. All we care about is your success. Sankar, thank you so much. Please enjoy the free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate course. And guess what? When you're done that, go and do the free Certified Solution Architect Professional course on our YouTube channel. Chris can drop the link to that too. And along the way, I would do the AWS Advanced Networking course. I view AWS Advanced Networking as basically an intro to networking. But if you're not coming from a heavy networking background, then it's a really good way for you to get some extra experience. So we highly recommend that. Now, Robert Mutta, 90% of the architectures are basically lift and shift migrations in today's world. And you do the design, you do the plan, you do the ROI modeling, you sell it to the customer. You might even lead it, but the cloud engineers are actually going to do the configuration of things on the cloud. Rav Singh Sang, we have 150 recruiters that we actually work with, and we use those recruiters to help our students find jobs. Here's the process. We have a student that goes through our program. They do the work that they're supposed to do. They participate in the calls. And when we feel they're ready, because I get asked for jobs literally every single day of the week, we use the request to come from me, or I call recruiters on our students' behalf and say, I've got the student, they're ready. I sent 3 people to recruiters last week. A couple weeks before that, I sent 3 people to AWS, because AWS occasionally brings representatives on our call because they love our program and our student. So those kind of things. So yes, we provide lots of support. Can't guarantee anything because you can't guarantee that our students do the work we tell them to do. But you know, we have got remarkable success over the last 20 years helping people find their first tech job. I mean, remarkable success. But Rule Islam, how much knowledge do you need to know of operating systems? You need to know how the operating systems work in relative depth. You need to understand how they would manage memory, for example, how they manage CPU resources, how they deal with cards and drivers and things like that. You need to understand which services are necessary to run, which services you can disable to improve security. You need to understand, locking them down, patching them, looking for vulnerabilities. Those kind of things are really important to know. Hope I answered your question about Badrul Islam. Package. What about the Google Cloud cert? Well, package, there's lots of Google Cloud certs. So I don't know your background, I don't know your experience, and I don't know your goal career. So if you want to tell me that, I would be honored to try and give you some information. But without that, it's just guesses, and I don't ever want to give guesses to people. While I'm looking for that, I'm trying to see if I've missed anything in the questions. So let me know that you're here by typing Cloud Architect in the window so I know everybody is awake, alert, and oriented. I see a lot of you on the call, but I want to make sure you're happy. And if you are enjoying, if you don't mind leaving a like, please let us know. And please feel free to spread the word about some of these free messages. Hi, Basingi. What a neat name. Valerie Mism. You're a solution architect and would love to move up the cloud ladder. Okay, are you working right now as a cloud architect? And if so, I will tell you exactly how you move up the cloud ladder. And I made a video today exactly teaching you how to move up the cloud ladder, how to double and triple your salary and grow to senior level positions. I just released that video today, actually, but I'd love to talk to you about more of it. So first thing that we'll do is we'll list the link of that video today. And Albasir, thank you so much. Sankars, looking forward to you being a cloud architect very soon. I think that's terrific. So, Basingi, assuming you're actually working as a cloud architect or a solution architect today. Now, if that's the case, here's what you need to do. Early on in your career as a solution architect, you need to get really technically strong. So in the beginning of your technical career, say the first few years, you're spending about 80% of your time training technical once you're hired. Before you're hired, you need more soft skills. But about 80% of your time technical for the first couple of years, and then after that, and about 20% of your time on leadership, communication skills, that sort of thing. Now, as you get a little more senior, you're going to have to shift into much more communication skills, much more business acumen, much more business emotional intelligence, much more leadership principles. You know, these kind of things. These are the things that skyrocket your career. I had a manager when I was younger and said, you know the difference between a $100,000 a year engineer, Mike, and a $300,000 a year engineer, Mike? And this was 20 years ago. And I said, no, but I want to know. And he said, communication skills, business acumen, emotional intelligence. I said, great. And he said, would you like to go to leadership training? I said, yes. So he sent me to leadership training. I did a lot of leadership training, and it made my career so good I was able to retire at 34. When I retired at 34, all I did was help people find tech jobs. And of course, you know, I did lots of cool tech projects and consulting because being retired is boring as can be, especially when you're like wound tight like me. And I just need to go, go, go. So that's what I did in my retirement. But I will tell you, that's the secret to success. More of that. And then after that, it becomes being an expert. Maybe you're a cloud security expert. Maybe you're a retail expert that knows the cloud. Maybe you're a medical professional, medical industry expert that knows the cloud. There are lots of ways to do it. So the ways you get ahead is you specialize in something, a tech, or you specialize in an industry, finance, healthcare, retail. What you want to do is you need to be an expert. Experts get paid far more than generalists in all careers. You've got a family practitioner, probably the most, or an internal medicine doctor, probably the most important person in someone's care. They're the person that coordinates the medical care of every other doctor. And you've got a neurosurgeon that earns 6 times more. And why is that? It's specialty. Same thing happens with architects. When you're a vertical industry architect like me, and I spent years as the lead architect for Cisco in their healthcare practice. Why? I used to practice medicine. I'm a nurse practitioner. So I had my own office. I was a CCIE and an MBA. So I hit those 3 things: vertical industry expertise, business acumen. I took lots of emotional intelligence training, and that was my path to expertise. But that was my industry vertical path to expertise. How did I become an expert earlier in my career? I was Mr. BGP. People brought me all over the world just to talk about BGP. I had 10,000 hours of BGP knowledge in my first 3 years because I was working like 60 to 80 hours a week. At 10,000 hours in BGP, that's when I started to realize what I didn't even know, because it takes you to be an expert to know all the more things. So then I studied BGP for another 5 years. After about 10 years of working with BGP, people knew me as Mr. BGP. And so you can be Mr. BGP, Mr. Machine Learning, Mr. Cloud Database, Mrs. Container. It doesn't really matter, but you've got to be an expert in something or some vertical. Now, from there, moving it up the ranks, it is all business, all communication skills, all leadership skills. That's the stuff that doubles or triples your salary and opens you up for the best jobs in the world. That's what I did. That's what all of the students I've coached did. And that's the leadership path. And I produced a video just today on that, on the leadership path. I will so check on the latest video that we released today, or better yet, Chris, please respond as Go Cloud Architects and put the link of that video today. Sankar, I'm sure you'll be a great cloud architect, and welcome to this community. It is a wonderful place to be. When people tell me they love When people tell me they love the cloud and people want to be part of this community, that's why we do all this free work. That's why we provide all of our free certification training. We want to bring up this community. I've been an architect for a long time. I know what it takes to be an architect, and I want you to all have the same career like I did. A career where you are super happy and you never feel like you worked a day in your life. Many years ago, I don't read novels, although I do read 2 to 3 books per week, but I don't read novels. And I remember being forced to read these books in high school that were novels. And I remember reading a Mark Twain novel, and somewhere in there, it was somewhat interesting. And then I started learning a little bit about the author. And he said, if you make your vacation your vocation, you'll never work a day in your life. Now, I've worked 80 hours a week most of my life, but I've never worked. What did I do? I woke up. I got to play with tech. I got to learn about tech. I got to communicate tech, talk about tech, spread the word about tech, and play with tech. This was like my playground. I've never worked. All I've ever done was play with tech. And you know what I did when I retired? I bought more servers. My house sounds like a jet engine. Zoom, zoom, zoom. I've got routers, switches, firewalls, IDS systems all over the place, servers all over the place. Even my desktop that I use has to have 16 cores and 192 gigs of RAM and an NVMe array. Why? Because I'm Mr. Tech Experimenter. I love it. It's fun. So that's my suggestion. Do what you love and you'll be amazing at it. BHG730. To start a career in cloud, which cloud provider is best for the journey? Probably wouldn't go to a cloud provider, BHG730. I would probably go to a large global enterprise. Here's the thing. As a cloud architect or a solutions architect, you can work anywhere. You can work at a cloud provider such as Dell, Cisco, Palo Alto Networks, Oracle, BT, Vodafone, Verizon, or Amazon, Google, Microsoft, or Oracle, and these are good jobs. Or you can work at a global enterprise that's going to use cloud architects to design the systems that they're going to purchase from the cloud provider. Look at it this way. If you wanted to buy something, would you call the cable company and say, "Cable company, design me the perfect solution for my business"? Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to let the cable company design my business, and neither will most enterprises. So while the cloud architects, the solution architects at AWS, for example, on Azure, are good guides, you're never going to take their advice because they have an initiative. Their initiative is to sell the most profitable services for the cloud provider. And they will often recommend things like cloud native. And the reason they recommend things like cloud native is, yes, they are cool. But once you go cloud native, you can't get off of their cloud. You're locked in. And if they raise your rates, you are in trouble, which is why 90% of these things are lift and shift. So the cloud providers will do it in a drug dealer-like fashion. Let me give you this service. Let me make you addicted. Make it so hard for you to leave us that if it costs you $50 or $100 million to get off of our systems, you can't leave. And that's what happens when the cloud providers design your systems for you. They basically have you refactor, reconfigure all of your applications, which cost you millions upon millions of dollars. You move everything to the cloud. And then after it's there and they do something you don't like, you can't get off. When you get, just like the cable company, you get an initial discount rate. So all these organizations have cloud providers. So every major organization has a cloud architect, which means if there's 1 million companies out there, there's probably 1 million companies that have solutions architect and cloud architects. So generally speaking, it's often, not always, some of my students go straight to AWS, some go to Palo Alto or Cisco or Google, happens all the time. But lots of people go work for banks. Lots of people work for retail organizations, and guess what? You can earn far more in a bank as a cloud architect than you can at AWS. Far more. Some of these banks offer $600,000 a year bonuses to the average employee. So lots of places to work as a cloud architect. So how did I get my start? I started with an internet service provider. Then I went to a bank. In the bank, that's where I built my career. Why the bank? People pay you based upon your last salary. So what did I do? Worked at an ISP, got paid well. Went to a bank, got paid double and a half. My first job 6 months later. From there, what did I do? I took another big finance job. I took that for a period of time. That again skyrocketed my rate. And then I went to Cisco. Then when I was at Cisco, I came in there with a large pay. And I had a lot of experience. So I did not join Cisco as a fresher. I joined as the highest level engineer I possibly could. And I held that job for about a year, maybe 9 months. About a year. And from there, I took an architect position, and my career did this. So you don't have to start with a cloud provider. You can work at any telco, any technology vendor. They all have a cloud. Lots of cloud-based companies. Even Zoom is cloud-based. So thousands and thousands and millions of companies for you to work at as a cloud architect or a solution architect. Don't limit yourself to just the cloud providers. If I was going to go to a cloud provider to start, I think Microsoft would probably be the best in the way they treat their people. Google with the number 2, and Amazon is a number 3. But Palo Alto, who has their own cloud, treats their employees really great. Cisco is one of the best companies to work for in the world, and they have their own cloud. So lots of places. I just wanted you to know what your options are. Rita L. Finished the AWS Certified Solutions Architect class in April. Wonderful, looking for a job. Going through your videos, you teach in depth and would like to know more. Be better, expert, and climb the ladder. Good, that's what I want you to do, and then you will have a career like you can't even imagine. What should be your next step? Solutions architect professional or get the first job? I'm going to be honest with you, Rita. It is near impossible to get any type of cloud position without the certified solution architect professional. So while I would encourage you to for example, to start looking for things, I would probably knock out the Certified Solutions Architect Professional fast. And the reason I would actually do that is I would try to work very diligently to put your resume out there with something that's going to be undesired. So I would do the Certified Solutions Architect Professional next. In the meantime, I would make sure I was really competent, because once you get an interview, you don't want to waste it. If you interview with AWS, for example, and they don't like you, you can't interview again for 6 months to a year. So I hate to see people burn interviews. Plus, they may never interview you again if it doesn't go well. So I would say do the Certified Solution Architect Professional. Watch all those videos that we have on our channel, because I really get deep into architecture things. Build some labs. Either get a server of your own, so sorry, Zubir, I'll get to your question next. So get a server on your own, build the cloud, set up server virtualization, build some containers, do these kind of things. If you're with us, and we'd love to work with you, make sure you focus on your communication skills, emotional intelligence, presentation skills, ROI modeling skills, salary negotiation skills, CXO relevancy skills, because you need absolutely every one of them. They're just critical. If you're not, if you watch the replay of this video, I talked about places where you could get it. Emotional intelligence from, say, Goldman and Boyatis. It'll be a few $1,000s of training, about 5 times more than we charge, but you definitely need that to get these roles. You definitely are going to need some presentation skills training, like a Jerry Weissman or a Speakeasy. Again, there's going to be a couple $1,000 course, but you need these skills. Salary negotiation, we use the work of the Harvard Negotiation Project plus Chris Voss. You need these skills. You can buy those courses or train them. Just make sure you get these skills somehow. We include all of this in our program at a very low price, intentionally. But if you get it with us, great. If not, these are the skills you need to get. They are just required skills for the architect. And make sure you get some practice interviewing in as well. We do that with our students, but if not, find an interview coach. Do that. Get that Certified Solutions Architect Professional. Fill in those gaps with those kind of labs that I'm talking about, and you will be golden. You will have more opportunities than you can imagine, and a career that will accelerate like a rocket ship. I hope I answered your question there, Rita. I'm happy to answer more. Zubir Akar, what's the difference between our Cloud Architect Career Development Program and our Experience Program? Zubir Akar, our primary training program is the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. And RV Sing Song, yes, we'll get you a demo. I'll tell you how we're going to do that in a moment. So, the big difference is as follows. Our program to build a cloud architect from scratch is the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. It is a comprehensive, deep, live training program. So twice per week in the Cloud Architect Career Development Program, what we actually do, we do that every call, and Rob will get you an answer in a minute. So we have live training every Monday and every Friday, and what we do on our live training is the students interview us, and they ask us about a big tech solution. They will be basically meeting with the CEO of a business, who will be me. And after they meet with me, I will give the business, the legal, the technical, the regulatory requirements, and I will present the solution that I currently have. And then from there, the students will design a solution on two clouds. And if they choose to build it on any cloud provider of their choice or their own personal cloud, they're allowed to. Or we even encourage it. So that's how we do twice per week live. Now, on the side of it, um, we have video lectures we do during the week that focus on what is the cloud, how does the cloud work, why do people use the cloud, what technologies make the cloud. Then we talk about virtualization and all these things. Then we make our students build each and every one of the things that make the cloud possible on our servers. So everything from server virtualization to containers to our students build the cloud. And then we have a heavy emphasis on teaching communication skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence, interviewing, and salary negotiation. That's a 250-hour comprehensive class that includes support, live lectures. People can reach out to us on Slack during the week. They can ask questions of me on the Monday and Friday calls. So that is our career development program. Our Cloud Architect Experience program is a lab-based program. It is not live. There's no discussions with us. There's no ability to ask for questions. It's just labs. And because I felt bad giving just labs, I added about 30 hours of solution architect training and a couple hours of cloud architect training. And I gave 10 classes or 5 to 10 class examples that come from the design experience from the career development program to the experience program. So it is a lightweight version of the experience of the career development program without all the communication skills, without all things. It's just a lab program, and I created it for one reason and one reason alone. I am really lucky and blessed to have done a lot of relief work in Africa and India and other developing nations. And I have had the chance to work with some of the best people in the entire world, people that just want to work hard to achieve something. I've done it in the Middle East, I've done it in Africa, I do it in India, I do it in Pakistan. Literally every day I work with people in the developing world and they just want to get ahead. And I tried to say, hey everybody, here's how you do it for free. And I produced a video and I said, buy yourself a 16-core Xeon server with 128 gigs of RAM and 3 fast SSD drives in a RAID 0 environment. And when I suggested that, those servers were about $500. And people were calling me saying, Mike, I can't afford that, I can't afford that, I can't afford to buy a server, what else could I do? So what I did is I created a Cloud Architect Experience program, which was basically rental server access with some extra training along the way. So what we do is we recommend our Cloud Architect Career Development Program as the program to do to become a Cloud Architect. We keep the Experience program for people that just need to do cloud labs. Maybe they were a sales rep, for example, that also was a network engineer that just needs some of these things. So it's a lightweight program and it's designed for labs, for just hands-on experience. Our recommendation is the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. And I hope I answered that in a manner that made sense for you, Zabir Akar. Nelson and Vicky, what kind of cloud architect is in the highest demand right now? I would say the generic cloud architects that we do are in extremely high demand. The security architects are in extraordinarily high demand. And guess what? Since almost nobody knows infrastructure, infrastructure architects are in moderate to high demand. But I'd say the cloud security architects are probably the best place to be, and that's where we train 50+% of our students. And thank you so much for the kind words, Rita. I do love to teach. Sankar, I'm happy to share, where I came from. So thank you so much. Generational entrepreneur, what projects for a portfolio? How do you help a small business transition to the cloud behind architecture if you only have skills of a systems designer? That's a pretty good question. Well, as an architect, unless you own your own business, you are not going to be working with small businesses as a rule. Small businesses do not have the budget for cloud architects. Now, if you're doing some freelance work, then you're going to have two options. Either you're going to start a company and you're going to be the one selling it and designing it, and you're going to have a cloud engineer build it, or when it's your own company or a small company or doing the small things, the projects you're doing with these customers are really small, such as set up an EC2 instance or configure an S3 bucket, so you can potentially design that and just configure it. I don't ever tell my people not to learn to configure. All of our people follow first our Certified Solution Architect training, which is basically like intro to the cloud. And in that, they all learn how to configure all the things that are necessary. And after my students design things, we often ask them to configure things as well, just so they know how. Because if you're working as a consultant, in a small environment, that's there. But realize most cloud architects do not work with small businesses. They work with big global businesses. It's probably cheaper in many cases for a small business to just go to Dell, buy a $5,000 server, virtualize absolutely everything in a single server for a small business because they generally can't afford redundancy, and even do and literally be up and running for a few $1,000s, and that can work with that small business literally for years without even going to the cloud. So it may be a lot cheaper for a small business to just buy one good server, or it could be for the cloud. But here's the key: as a cloud architect, it's your job to figure what's best for the client and make the best things. And everything good, everything meaningful is built in a team. That's why team player skills are so absolutely essential. Literally essential for a cloud architect. Hope I answered your question there. Rav Singh Song, can you get a demo? Yes. Want to come to the Friday class? Send a message to admin@gocloudcareers.net. Let me type it in. Well, actually, Chris, could you link a list to the email, the admin@gocloudcareers.net? And if you put that in, what we'll do, Rav Singh Song, is send an email to that. Send one today, and we will give you an invitation to the Friday call. You'll get to be part of our design call, and from there you can make any decision that you desire. Chris from my team will put the link to the email address for our main corporate site, and we'll get you an invitation for the class. And if anybody else wants to attend Friday's class, send an email for that. I will give you all a free sample of the class, and I promise you, you will learn more in this 3-hour class than I bet most people have done in the last year of studying on their own. Nelson, Velodyne, we go over hybrid cloud setups every day. Hybrid clouds are kind of the way, hybrid clouds are one of the most common things you could possibly deal with, as are multi-cloud environments. So of course we do. It's so critical. We can't just teach AWS solutions architect work and expect anybody to get hired. It's not practical. Everything, even it is hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, there's no such thing as just a simple cloud solution, so we must teach these. It's part of it required. So if you're with us, we cover this. If you're not, make sure you understand how all these clouds work and how to connect them and things like that. Okay, Nelson, does your course have class sessions every day? And if so, for how long? Nelson, we have a 3-hour class twice per week that is live, Mondays and Fridays, which we record in case people can't make them. In addition to this 3-hour live class, which we literally do twice per week, we have videos that the students do self-paced on demand on their own. And that's any other time during the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. What the students do is they do the homework assignments, they do the projects, and then they submit whatever appropriate assignments to our Slack channel, and then we give them feedback on it. So we're constantly having our students do stuff and then giving feedback. Do things and do feedback. Do more and do feedback so we can guide our students. I don't believe it's possible to actually get quality training from a video for which you don't have instructor feedback. Practice makes permanent, right or wrong. Perfect practice makes perfect. So when we teach certain athletes certain special skills, what we're dealing with is as follows. If you do it wrong 1,000 times, do you know what you do? You are an expert at doing it wrong 1,000 times. So that's why we don't believe in video only training. And even when we do free certification training boot camps, we always do 20 minutes of lecture and 10 minutes of questions, because you've got to be able to ask questions. So our students, not only do the live sessions on Mondays and Fridays, but they turn in their projects during the week, and we give them feedback on that because we want our students to grow. We want our students to excel, and we can't do that without guiding. The architect skill set is an expensive skill set. I mean, realistically speaking, people are paying a good cloud architect more than a physician. So because of that, it takes a lot of depth of knowledge, and that's why it's super important. So with us, live classes twice per week, projects people do during the week, and feedback. Hope I answered your question there, Nelson. Meme, good question. If you lack business skills and sales skills, I probably wouldn't go to Harvard. And the reason I probably wouldn't do this is after going through a tremendous number of Harvard MBAs, and I've replaced many of them in my careers, those that were hired and fired very quickly, um, in school, and Harvard's one of the better ones, they teach the academic basis of it. But that's not necessarily what people do in real life. So if you're in our training program, we cover all the sales skills, all the business concepts that you need to know, and every business acumen, negotiation piece, presentation piece. The training of our course, if you bought it on your own, would be at least $20 to $25,000. We do it for basically $800 with a discount coupon code. Why am I doing this? Because I know that it cost me $250,000 to develop this skill set. I know what it did for my career and my family, and I know how wonderful it's worked for everybody that I've taught over the years. Now, I also know it's not feasible for most people to spend $250,000 on training. How did I do it? I had a really great job. And I had a really great job, so it became very easy to me. But I work with so many wonderful people in the developing world. I mean, people that are just so great that just want to build a career for themselves. So I make it inexpensive. I don't charge one price in America and another price in Africa or India. It just doesn't feel fair. So what I do is I use a price that's low enough that I can use it anywhere in the world to make sure everybody can get the careers they need. And because of that, we're busy. But because of that, our students also do so well. I hope I answered your question there, Meme. And if you've got a bigger question or a subsequent question, it's there. Now, I did an MBA. I did, that's my second master's degree. It did help, but after the MBA, I still took about $50,000 worth of courses of emotional intelligence, presentation skills training, executive presence, the same presentation courses. So the MBA didn't do enough for me. I still needed over $50,000 in training courses to put it into context. Rav Singh San? Sure. So while we have other programs that contain other certification, that we have other professionals, and we've got lots of them in development or working on. When it comes to the professional details about the trainers that do this, here's what I can tell you. I am the exclusive trainer of the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. And I will tell you that I've been working in tech since 1993. I was a Cisco Certified Internet Expert in 2000. My CCIE number is 7417. I have consulted to the world's largest ISPs all over the world. Some include NTT, Telefonica, Verizon, AT&T, TELUS, I think Vodafone. Well, I could keep going, but it doesn't matter. They're all the biggest companies, Comcast, all the biggest companies in the world. I was the lead architect at Cisco for the healthcare industry. I was the lead architect at Cisco for the most strategic voice over IP design. And I've been teaching cloud as well as blockchain, as well as all of these careers for 20 plus years while I actually had the career. So I'm the exclusive person of this. Why am I the person that teaches this? I've interviewed well over 5,000 candidates in my entire life. I have worked with more people to help them get their first tech jobs that I can't even remember. I lost count many years ago because I've done so much of it. And I've loved it. And every time one of my students basically sends me an email and says, I'm hired, I love it. So I am the exclusive trainer of this training program. And I've got almost 30 years experience plus 20 years experience helping people get their jobs. Rob Singh. So I hope I answered your question. We have other programs taught by other wonderful, wonderful people, but I teach this program exclusively. Well, Velodyne, before an AWS Cloud Architect course, well, it depends. If you're training with us, everybody gets CCNA to CCNP level knowledge while they're with us, and they also get CISSP level knowledge while they're learning the cloud, because that's kind of the minimum knowledge we feel. And then we have our students just basically take a simple Cisco exam when they're done. So we cover that. So if you're one of our students, I would say no. But if the only thing you were going to do would be was going to do certification training on its own, I would say do the CCNP and then do the AWS Solutions Architect Associate and Professional. And then when you're done that, make sure you start doing the kind of labs and the kind of business experience things that I'm saying. If you do this on your own, it will take you at least a year. If you do it with us, it'll be approximately 4 to 6 months based upon your background and experience. Just please understand these are big careers. These people get paid more than a doctor. A doctor goes to school for upwards of 16 years. A cloud architect gets paid that. So if you're on your own, realize a minimum of 1 year, realize a minimum of 25,000 pages of reading that are outside of these two curriculums, and you should be good. As long as you do the business skills, the communication skills, the presentation skills training, and then build all this stuff. So either way you can do it. Those are your two ways, but we do them all concurrently. And the reason we train our students concurrently, and we don't say do AWS first or do the network first, is as follows. Here's the reason. When you train a doctor, you do a little pharmacology in the morning, which is the study of medications. You do a little pathology, which is a little study of the disease. You do some lab training, which is, how do you interpret someone's blood and urine results or what have you. You do some hands-on training about exams. You do a lot of training on soft skills and emotional intelligence so you can learn how to ask the right questions to the patient. So they all do it at the same time. And the reason is, when you're with us and we're teaching security, a lot of our security stuff is also based on the network. And then we're teaching two skills at the same time. And then we're also teaching the cloud at the same time. So we're teaching all of these things, and each one supports the other. When you know more about the cloud, you know more about why the network is there. When you know the network, you know how to make the cloud run more smoothly. So realistically speaking, what we're dealing with is we're trying to build that expertise level, and we're trying to build skills all at the same time that build with each other. So with us, we train them all at the same time. Meme. What about the certification? We make sure that every person that graduates our program passes at minimum the Certified Solution Architect Professional, because even with training and knowledge, it's almost impossible to get a job without that. We make sure we skip completely unrelated certifications that will hurt your ability to get hired, such as SysOps or DevOps if you want to be a cloud architect. We find a lot of people have this on their resume, and it makes them much harder to get hired, and it drops their salary dramatically. Here's the reason. An architect is a very focused specialist. The more things you have on your resume, Cisco Certified Network Professional, deep networking. Certified Solution Architect Professional, now you've got a resume that looks like something. Or you want to do cloud security, CISSP plus Certified Solution Architect Professional. You look great. You've got a focused resume. Now, let's take a step back. Let's look in the doctor world, because I want you guys to all understand how silly the SysOps and DevOps is for the cloud architect. What if, in a way, you wanted to build a neurosurgeon, a brain surgeon, for example? If you sent the brain surgeon to podiatry training, which is the foot, and then you sent the brain surgeon to dermatology training, which is the skin, and then they did a little brain surgeon training, would you want to hire that person? Or would you think that they're better off with the skin, for example, or the feet? I wouldn't hire that person. So what happens is the cloud architect is the systems designer. The cloud engineer is the systems builder. The SysOps person is the main maintenance person. So basically they're the maintenance man or maintenance woman of the cloud. And the DevOps person is related to automating software release cycles. So when you see SysOps on a resume, it's like, what is this person? Are they the operations person? That's not an architect. That's not a systems designer. So we make sure that we focus on getting you the right certifications, the certifications that will make employers desire you, the certifications that will make our recruiters be able to get you more likely in front of the customer, and the certifications that will make you look better to get hired. Now, let me tell you, we try with our students never to go have them apply for jobs. What we try and do is have them work with one of our recruiters. Here's the process when it's getting your first job the traditional way. You apply for a job, it hits HR, HR sends you a rejection letter, lack of experience. Here's our process. Teach you everything you need to know. Get you great at it. Work with one of the recruiters. The recruiter then calls the hiring manager and says, I've got this person. They are perfect. They are absolutely terrific. They're an expert in networking and security plus cloud architecture. They're emotionally intelligent. They speak well. They write well, and you should hire them. Now, when the hiring manager interviews this person, they're already biased, and they're more likely to hire the person. Plus, we skip HR. We've got lots of ways to skip HR in our program. So That's kind of the way we do that. So I hope I answered your question. Now, Mare, a bachelor's degree in tech and an MBA is a great choice for a cloud architect. An absolutely wonderful choice. The MBA is good. But generally speaking, it's not necessarily just the, uh, the education or certifications, it's the whole totality of the situation. And but MBA is a fantastic thing for the cloud architect. Rav Sing Song, well, on Friday, come to the class for free. We're going to invite you. You will have me as your trainer for the day. And if you choose to train with us, you will have me as your trainer to help you get the goal of your dreams. So, Nelson, while it's easy for us to give you a certificate, and we are happy and to give you a certificate that shows you've accomplished our program, you still need a certification exam, and they are done through the vendors themselves. We typically recommend AWS for certifications and nobody else, as a rule. Why do we recommend AWS first? Because the majority of the cloud providers are AWS. So we typically recommend AWS because it gives most people the best career opportunities. And we teach people how to use every cloud anyway. So every design we do is always on more than one cloud. So as a cloud architect, realize you can be working on any cloud anywhere, anytime. And guess what? It's so easy. Because when you learn how to design the way we design as professional architects, where you take the business, the legal, the technical requirements, and you map them down onto modules, from there it's so easy. Just go to the Google, the Azure, the AWS, the Cisco, the Palo Alto, the Dell, BT, doesn't matter. Pick out the name of the service that matches the requirement that you have, and you're done. So very, very, very simple. And that's the way we do it that way. So GK, great question. And then I'll get to Richard Rich. GK, there's no reason to buy the $99 program on our website. It is the absolute same program that we took it and we provided it to AWS. Two things happened, which is why we gave that program away for free. We started doing a tremendous amount of relief work in Africa, and we worked with so many wonderful people that we met these folks, and we were just amazed by how motivated they were. We gave away so many free courses and books that we decided to make it free for the world. Plus, one other thing happened, and I kind of hate to say it, I made a video about it the other day. In the beginning of this, I bought the best-selling courses from the three main providers, and I interviewed 1,000 people that had taken these three course providers courses. And after interviewing 1,000 people for cloud architect jobs to see if I could either hire one, bring one on my team, I couldn't find a single person that was hireable from those three courses that were the best-selling courses that were out there. And that made me so upset. And what happened, the problem was these courses were like, here's the name of the service and how to configure it. And that's like, doctor, here's the name of your pills and the dosages. Now, I don't know about you, but when I went to school to learn and practice medicine, I learned how to interview the patient, I learned how to examine the patient, I learned the systems of the body, how they work together, I learned disease, I learned how to prescribe, I learned how to do labs, I learned how to communicate. This is all part of medicine. If all they told me was yellow pill or green pill at 300 milligrams, I'd be a junior tech. And I'd basically be able to say, here's your pill, I don't know if it's going to work. And that's what the certification training that we found that was out there was, here's the name of the service and how to configure it. Great for a junior implementation engineer. But how does that prepare anyone to go talk to a customer that's got 50,000 remote locations, 500,000 employees, 100,000 servers, 30,000 routers on their systems, applications that were coded by people that are dead and and they don't even have any documentation on it. Mainframes that have been there for 30, 40 years, and yes, they're all over the place. How does any of that AWS training prepare you to deal with this? And the answer is it doesn't. It's so unrelated to the job, they should just call it junior implementation engineer training and get rid of the word solution architect. So because of that, that's why we provided our training free. So GK, if you go to our YouTube page, the Certified Solution Architect Professional Training is completely free. The Certified Solution Architect Training is completely free. The Certified Solutions Architect Professional Training is completely free. And the AWS Advanced Networking is completely free. So go enjoy it. Get as much free training as you can. And we love having you on our channel and love having you on this message, on this board today. Manta Pi, how long does it take for someone with no background to complete your curriculum? Generally speaking, for people that have some background in technology, what we say is approximately 4 months. For people that have no background in technology, it's typically around 6 months, maybe 7 months. We don't charge people anymore if they need to be in the program for 6 months or 7 months. We hold no prerequisites. The reason we hold no prerequisites is as follows. I've interviewed 1,000 AWS certified people, and the reality is not a single one of them were hireable. So even when I get AWS certified people, I need to start them all from the foundation and build a good, strong, solid foundation to make sure you know all the underlying technology, the network and the data center. And once you know that, and once you're good at that, it's really easy for me from there. All I've got to do is I can do rapid training, because understand everything that gets complicated. It's just merely the fundamentals used in a different way. So whether you have a background or experience or not, no big deal. Now, if you've been working in tech, it's 4 months, occasionally 3 months if somebody's really motivated. I had some students that literally went through in 2 weeks and got hired by AWS, but that is really, really rare. But what is not is about 4 months is normal with experience, because it's a big role. Now, without experience, we're talking about 6 to 7 months on average. It could be a little longer, 8. It could be a little shorter based upon how much time. If you're the person that can lock yourself in a room for 8 hours a day, 4 months without experience is often enough. But if you are not, plus everybody learns at a different pace. So 6 to 7 months with no background or experience. We don't charge double. We don't charge any more for the program. It's just we accept people have their own starting point, and our goal is to get them through. And that's all we care about. So I hope I answered your question there, Montepai. And we're actually going to have a really fun webinar tomorrow. We're going to tell you everything you need to do to get hired. My associate Chris just pasted a link to it. He also pasted a link to our training along with the 20% coupon code if anybody's interested. So now, who has the next question for me? And if I missed another question, please feel free to retype it in the chat box, because I want to make sure we answer everyone's question. And while I'm waiting for new questions, if you can let me know that you're there by either leaving a like or typing the words Cloud Architect in the box, we know you're awake, alert, and oriented. Thank you, Montepai. We try to provide as much as we can for free on our channel. We really love working with the community. We love that YouTube offers us the ability to touch people's lives all over the world, and that's why we do these so much work on YouTube. Who else? Nelson, thank you so much. I know you're there. If you're there, type Cloud Architect so I know. And if you're enjoying the conference, if you don't mind leaving a like, that would be great. And if you've learned some things here that you think would be valuable to others, please feel free to share the link to this as well. Our goal is to help as many people in the cloud community as we can spread throughout the world. Rav Singh Song, we will keep the discount active at the end of the Friday demo class. Absolutely. All we care is that our students do well. We don't play any games around here. Thank you, LTV. Thank you, Anakit. I know you're here. Thank you, Montepai. Who else has a question for me? Ma Robley? Of course you can apply for a cloud architect role while you're an IT engineer. The question is, do you actually have the skills to get hired? Rajesh, please send an email to admin@GoCloudCareers. Chris from my team will definitely pop the link to that again as well, because we'd love to have you participate in our Friday's class. It's just that we'll send a Zoom link. So please send an email to the admin@GoCloudCareers.net. But someone from my team will send you a YouTube invite. So Chris, please paste that email address in the window. And Rajesh will get you covered. Richard Rich, really great question. Any suggestions or guidance for someone who isn't sure what type to be? When people don't know what type they need to be, Generally, my recommendation is as follows. Build a good, strong network of the data center and the network. Because no matter what you do, you're going to need that. So when people don't know, I do network training with them, I do data center training, and I give security training. Why do I focus on those three? Because as a rule, um, what you're actually dealing with um, is something that's very big in these architecture roles. So if you don't know, learn the cloud, basically, which means learn the network, the data center, and security. And by what do you call it? And by doing these things, you find yourself in a position that you're ready for anything. So network, cloud, security. We work all these things. Velodyne, if you're in a third world nation or something like that, send an email to admin at GoCloudCareers. My associate will be able to reach out to you and see what types of options we possibly could have for you. In certain situations, there's resources. So it's on a case-by-case basis. It's not something we can often do, but definitely send an email to admin at GoCloudCareers and see, and I'll see if somebody from my team can find a way to assist you. LTV, see, here's the issue with the cloud and entry-level jobs. So this is why it's so hard for new people that don't have the real skill set. Is it used to be that we had a network and a data center. Now this network was really complicated, and the data center was really complicated. So in our network, we automated things. We'd have certain junior people that would configure the routers. We would tell them what to do, and they would just do it. And it would save the more expensive resources time. So that's generally speaking something that we typically like. I forget where I was actually asking the questions. There were so many questions that were coming in. I actually lost my train of thought. I actually forget the question that I was actually being asked. So it was Richard Rich, I believe, when the question was, what do you do? Focus on the network, focus on the data center. Oh, no, what it was. Why are there no entry-level jobs? Apologies. Why are there no entry-level jobs? Here's the reason. In the network and the data center, you've got things that are complicated. And what takes a lot of time? You got a person that needs to install Linux, takes a lot of time. You've got a person that needs to install Windows on a server, takes a lot of time. You got a person that can literally be running around with a sniffer or a protocol analyzer, takes a lot of time, collects a lot of data, maybe somebody else analyzes it. None of that's needed on the cloud. How do you start a Linux instance on the cloud? You push 3 buttons. I use an 8-year-old to do it. So that pretty much the cloud and the migration to the cloud really hurt a lot of people because it made it that there's really no reason to have or need an introductory level person. Because what happens in the cloud, everything is so easy. And because of this, so much of it can be automated with scripts that you don't need introductory level people anymore. I hate this. It's kind of like when they put the electronic things in the grocery store so they don't need the cashiers anymore. Well, the cloud has made everything so easy that the things that people used to do that took a lot of time as entry-level jobs just aren't needed anymore. So you kind of have to prepare yourself for bigger jobs, LTV. I wish it wasn't the case. I hate this, but it's true. It is just so hard to get an entry-level job. In fact, if you tried to get an entry-level job on your own, it could literally take you a year, maybe or more. And if the average solution architect earns around $150,000 a year, the time that it actually takes to actually pass through one of these things is a loss of about $150,000 a year. So my recommendation, LTV, is to not train or not focus so hard on getting an entry-level job, but focus so hard and so focused and get the best training that you can be done in 4 months or so, and then get hired for the real job that you want. That's what I typically recommend that people do, because it's so hard to get entry-level jobs. I wish it wasn't the case. I hate it. But the more we simplify things, the more we push people aside with lesser skills, which is why it's so important to have better skills, because the world is changing things. Like I said, Velodyne, reach out to admin at GoCloudCareers. So, Mayor W, which is better, NSX or Meraki certification. So realistically speaking, I wouldn't do either. Meraki is a very good SDN firewall product, switch. It's great, and it's typically great. I have one in my home. I've got one that our company uses. They're really great for small to medium-sized businesses or remote access locations, like for example, a Starbucks would have them, or a retail bank branch would have them, or a retail store like a Target would have them. But when you're dealing with the main data centers that the organizations have, they're going to be using Cisco stuff, not Meraki stuff. So the Meraki certifications, I don't see a lot of value in achieving them. The NSX, not really. I would focus on Cisco, CCNP, CCIE. And I mean, you don't need the CCIE. That's more for people like me that are heavy-duty, heavy network architects. But I wouldn't do either of those certifications. I would either just do a CCNP if I wanted a good networking one, or I would do, for example, a CEH for security or CISSP for security. If I was a big data person, for example, and as a big data person, for example, I might have an Oracle certification, but they gotta be the big global companies. Meraki is a great company, but it's infinitesimally small compared to Cisco, and Cisco owns them. You know, they're a very small company by comparison. So I wouldn't get either. I'd get the Cisco ones. I hope I answered your question. Burgu Sharma, can you contact us? Of course you can. I put my phone number there earlier in the chat box, but I will put our corporate number again. Just to let you know, I will be holding the phone today. We rotate who owns the phone, but I will be holding the phone today and probably for the rest of the week, since it's my week to own the phone. So anybody wants to text me, I will be personally at the phone for the next few days. Then it will be handed to another member of the team. But if anybody wants to call me after this call, feel free to. Nelson and Creepy, what kind of incentives have you seen? It's not uncommon for a senior cloud architect or an enterprise cloud architect or distinguished cloud architect to get upwards of a $50,000 bonus upon sign-on. For new people, this is definitely not something that goes on. And if you're going to a company that does big bonuses like Facebook, I've seen people get $100,000 plus bonuses, and yes, they do need cloud architects too, even though they have their own clouds and data centers. So some of those companies pay well. Some of the banks have some big sign-ons. Some of the global enterprises also have some big sign-ons, anywhere from $20,000 to $100,000 I've seen. It's not as common as it used to be. Typically, the people that are getting those bonuses are more people like me, and they're people that they're really hard to get because of the level of business acumen and communication skills and level of expertise. So lots of incentives out there if you're great, Nelson, and that should never be a problem. Montepai, sure. Here's what I can tell you. Our students get hired on a daily basis. We've got lots of testimonials on our website. I've had people in my program as long as 2 weeks get hired. And I've had some people that need to work with me for 6 months to get hired, but it's a big number and it's a big percentage. Armin Lakas. Lakalis, if I got your name wrong. Could you please elaborate on the day of a solutions architect and DevOps engineer? Well, Armin Lakas, I'm not a DevOps engineer, so I can't tell you what they do during the course of their day. But they will be at the computer all day, literally. It's an engineering position. Now, an architect is very different. Their day might be as follows. Go to the office, do a video conference with a client, think about a system design, or go to the client site, ask some questions, maybe buy the client lunch with your corporate credit card, very common as the cloud architect, maybe talk to the client some more, maybe entertain the client for dinner and buy dinner and drinks again on a corporate credit card. The next day, you could be in your home office, and you could be designing things all day, as well as providing guidance and mentorship to other people and speaking to clients. The next day after that could be an all design day. The day after that, you could be in front of customers presenting designs that you've actually done. Or you could just be buying lunches or dinners. There was 1 year where I spent $100,000 just buying lunches and dinners. Of course, the company paid for it. That was my job as an architect. I literally went to the customer site every day. I took the customer out to lunch every single day of the week, and dinner or drinks. I spent $100,000 that year on literally lunches and drinks. What did I do? I took out my team, I took out the customer. While we had lunches, I listened. Architect's best skill is listening. So these companies will give you multiple large expense accounts just to entertain your clients so you can learn and develop a close relationship. That's what an architect does. 50% of their time is communicating and designing and presenting and writing, and 50% of the time is going to be working with teams and designing. So I hope I've answered, but I'm not a DevOps engineer, so I can't comment. We do have a DevOps program in development. I have 2 DevOps people that have spent, one has been on the cloud and has a 30-year development experience. The other person that's assisting him, she's been working as a DevOps engineer for like a decade. And the previous year before that, 10 years before that, she's been doing big coding environments. So that's what I use to develop a DevOps engineer program. But I am not a DevOps engineer. I'm an architect, and therefore I'm not qualified to teach you DevOps engineering, and I don't want to mislead you. I don't teach courses for which I'm not a true expert. Hope I answered your question. So Mo Robo, our students create a research and development section on their resume. And in that research and development section in the resume, they post real projects that they did. So for example, we give them large design projects, and we post the projects they can post. And if they build them, they can post building them. And it's not like I set up an EC2 instance, nobody cares. It's not like you set up an S3 bucket. It's how did you design a global end-to-end solution, and you could have done proof of concept testing. Then, what is a cloud architect? A cloud architect is someone that takes the stuff from the data center and moves it to the cloud 90% of the time. So what do they want when it comes to experience? Network experience. So our students do work with the network. We pop it down. Then our students set up server virtualization. Again, write it on there. Worked with VMware ESXi for server virtualization. Built Docker containers. Set up Kubernetes clusters. Pop that on there. Built an OpenStack Ansible cloud. Worked with Microsoft Active Directory. Built NFS shares. Utilized Linux systems and created Samba shares for Linux file services with Windows clients. Built the Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP stack. Put this stuff there in the research and development section. Resumes have keyword scanners these days. Companies look for scans, and you need to have this stuff there. But why else is this research and development section so important? See, other people are going to put things like S3 or EC2. And an employer like me knows the following. When I configure my configurations, and I don't make that many videos on how to configure things, because I train architects, not engineers. And architects don't configure. But when I did the Certified Solution Architect Associate training, you know who configured in the labs? An 8-year-old little girl, my friend's daughter. She is beautiful. I basically told her what to click, and then I voiced it over. That's how we built the labs. So, if you put down I set up an EC2 instance, the hiring manager knows the 8-year-old could do it. Because they know. So those kind of labs really don't matter to the employer. But if you talk about the kind of designs we're talking about, these projects, and then you build them on the cloud as a proof of concept, now you've got experience, like 5 years worth of experience that employers care about. So that's how we get demo projects actually down there, and we have our students build them, and they build portfolios. And when you set it up, build a guide, a configuration guide, and a manual. Post some of these things to social media. Don't post, I set up an S3 bucket because it tells the world you're a junior. I set up an OpenStack Ansible cloud. Pop that on there. So, Aman Lakas official. For people that sign up to our training today, and we'll have lots of people sign up for our training today, what'll typically happen, the people will sign up. Within 45 minutes, they're going to get a welcome email. The welcome email will do as following. They will get them started training immediately. Like, as soon as people sign up, we want to know they're training that day. So they sign up, they subscribe to the Slack channel, and they start training. Now, what will happen if people sign up today? There'll be things to start the program with. Things about the system, things to read, work to learn, projects to do, career planning things to do, homework assignments for you to submit, and then we will grade them and give you feedback. Now, on Friday, we'll have a live architecture training class. And this is fun. This is where we go get people, and they basically interview me, and we do big, big, big solutions. The kind of solutions that have, literally speaking, the people that would only have 10 years of experience would ever get to design. My students do this every week. And then they design that solution on 2 different clouds. And then for my motivated students, they actually build it. So they've got a body of work. So then when they go to an interview through a recruiter that we recommended, and they skipped HR completely because HR is the job killer when you're new to getting tech hired, then poof, they're there and they've got something substantial. And when they know what the hiring manager wants and they know how to hire, what the hiring manager presents, they get hired. So people that would sign up today would instantly start training. On Friday, they do the first live class. Monday, they would do the next live class. In between classes, they do lots of work, and we give lots of feedback, and our students do really well. So I hope I answered your question there, Armand Lacus. People that they start immediately. Every day somebody's not working costs them $600, and we don't want even a minute of wasted time. So Mo Roblo, AWS, EC2, VTN, EFS, Route 53. They're so easy to implement that that's just not enough to impress a hiring manager. It's not enough. Now, you say you're working in IT. Can you steal a server? Can you build an OpenStack Ansible cloud? Can you build a Nutanix cloud? Can you set up Microsoft Active Directory? Can you, and maybe you've already done these, do you want to work with, say, Cisco Viral or EVENG and set up some BGP, set up some NAT, set up some static routing? And NAT isn't just to connect to the internet. NAT could be used for lots of reasons. Manipulate BGP policy. Prioritize your traffic. Set up, and Armand Lacus official, Chris from my team will give you that information right now. So pop that stuff on there. Setting up an EC2 instance or an EFS share or Route 53, it's not anything that somebody needs to hire you for. They're very junior level skills. So are they invalid skills? The answer is yes. Think bigger, Mo Roble. Think architect. Think how does it work? Think how do you design it? Think bringing all the pieces in the global end-to-end solution together. That's the job. Pop that on your resume and you will never have a problem. Armand Lacus, you can see my associate Chris pasted this. Rav Singh Song, great question. What if you miss a lecture? Don't worry about it. We record every video lecture. They're all done on Zoom. So for people that want to take something after the class, for example, then they can't make it, or they want to watch the replay, it's there. And not only that, we have our last 30 or 40 classes there. So each week when students sign up, they get access to not only the original 250 hours content in their program, plus possibly another 50 hours worth of content. So that's kind of how we do that at Sing-Song. Bhagan Sharma, yes, we're still here streaming. I do have my bottle of water here. And the reality is, as long as there's questions, we will typically stay on. I have up until noon. Now, if there's no questions, we obviously would stop. But we've got lively dialogue here. We've got people asking questions from all around the world. I want to make sure everybody has the best cloud architect career they desire, or the best cloud computing career. And since I have up to 12 today to keep going, I'm just going to keep going until the end. And then if anybody has questions, they know how to reach us. We provided our phone numbers, of course, and we definitely want to work with you. Now, I will tell you today, we released a video on optimizing your career, which is where we teach you basically how to go from like a junior person all the way to a senior person. And if anybody's curious about that, just to let you know, it's on our channel. We do as much as we can. If you guys are here, if you want to let us know, that would be absolutely wonderful. Let us know that you're awake, alert, and oriented. You can hear us by typing the words Cloud Architect. And if you've got questions, we're happy to answer them. Bhagaram Sharma, after 12 p.m., feel free to call via WhatsApp. Absolutely. Absolutely. Who else has a question? Thank you, LTV. I was actually saying Cloud Architect, but if you type GCA, that makes us even happier. Um, if you guys are having a fun, if you don't mind leaving a like, helps helps algorithms signal to share our content with more people, so we can help as many people. Rav Singh Song, the Friday class is at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Yes, the Monday one is at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. LTV, we do not use batches. Um, there's lots of reasons why we don't use batches, and here's the following reason. The architecture work we do on Monday and Friday just doesn't change. And realistically speaking, it's a little daunting for the first 2, 3 times that someone goes to these Monday and Friday classes. But it's our experience in about 2 to 3 weeks, they get it. Because it's like immersion therapy. What was the best way to learn a language? Just go somewhere and be immersed in it. So we do that on Mondays and Fridays. Now, during the week, everything is self-paced. We've got 200 lessons effectively. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's really no reason for us to actually create a batch. By doing things, by not creating batches, we can keep our costs extremely low because we don't have to advertise the course. We don't really advertise our courses. Our goal is to provide a lot of value. So we take people at all times. The architect work is always architect work. It doesn't change. But you progress through the course at your own pace. By following the lessons one at a time, you do the assignments at your own pace. And we can't really do it in batches for the following reason. We would do batches otherwise. See, what happens is this. See, I've got some people with no experience that they need 6 to 8 months to get through. And that's fine. We're thrilled to work with them. 6 to 8 months later, they have jobs. Great. I've got some people that don't have a job. They got laid off from their job, but they were a network engineer. And they could go through my course and finish it in 2 months. And for them, it's not fair to hold them into a 16-week batch. I've also got students that come to me with the best of intentions. They're 2 weeks in, and they get another job in an unrelated field. And it's a very high paying job and they love it, which is great, but they still want to go through the cloud architect program. So they do a little bit on the cloud with me while they take their full-time job, and then 6 months later they do a great cloud architect job, and that's okay too. So we don't do batches, we let people start at any time, and all we really care about is that we make sure all of our students succeed and do well. That's all we care about. I hope I answered your questions there. Bhagwan Mishram, you said books while studying. Which books do you recommend? So, if you are in our training program, Bhagwan Sharma, there's not much you need to do because we put all the content in the training program, including our books. Now, if you are not part of our training, I recommend reading the entire Cisco Certified Network Professional Library. I recommend reading the official documentation for both the Certified Ethical Hacker and the CISSP. And then I recommend you basically read the content to basically be from Red Hat for Linux, because you got to know Linux. I recommend reading the Microsoft documentation, for example, on Windows and Active Directory. What else would I recommend you do, which is super, super important? I'd recommend you learn about firewalls. So go to Cisco, Palo Alto, Fortinet, and Checkpoint. Learn about their firewalls. Now learn a lot about IDS, IPS systems. So go to the same Cisco, Palo Alto. I would actually include Juniper Networks here, and Fortinet, and Checkpoint. I go there. Now for virtualization, I go to VMware, and I get deep, deep, deep virtualization knowledge. Then for containers, I would go to Docker and Kubernetes and read their documentation, plus the virtual documentation. For DNS, which you need to know a lot about, I would go to F5. They've been working in the DNS industry for about 20 years. I would then go back to F5 to learn load balancers. And I would read the Linux documentation. I would read the Apache documentation. I would read documentation from Oracle on databases. I would also read the MySQL documentation. I would read documentation about Apache Cassandra, which is a NoSQL database. Those would be the kind of things that I would do if I was on my own to try and build some to build some knowledge. And I still have some of my students read some of them, but we provide it all in a consolidated environment. So Joshua, it's not just a diagram that's a portfolio. So an architecture is an end-to-end design. An architecture explains the problem that's being solved, the technologies that are being used, how each and every part works together, and then how the project is going to be deployed. So, big plan. I've written some of these documents that are 500 pages long. And granted, you're going to have lots of input in your team to do this. So, if you build an OpenStack Ansible cloud, talk about build aid on OpenStack Ansible cloud in order to provide cloud-based services local to a data center. And inside of there, talk about what you enabled, how you installed Linux first, how you installed the cloud control plane, how you set up the cloud data plane, how you chose which cloud services were necessary, and include screenshots of the things that you did. Then include all the configurations and how you got there. Then when you're done, show pictures of the management console. Then when you're done, show examples of how you set up websites on the own cloud that you built. Then show how you set up databases on there. Show how you set up some automation and scripting. So, put all that stuff in there. That's what goes into a design. It's not just a picture. A picture is what a certification provider provides. And architecture is deep, very, very deep. So that's how I would do it. And that's what my students do, or I've done in my career. Ahmad Q. Is cloud computing overall general aspect for a cloud architect, or is involved with the software part? I know cloud infrastructure is involved with networking. Okay. And then the next question is trying to clarify to know the specific path to go on. Okay, so Ahmad, what do you want to do? A cloud architect is not involved with software at all. A cloud architect is involved with taking systems from the data center and the network and moving them to the cloud. So a cloud architect is all design, meaning huge knowledge of infrastructure, network, and data center technologies. By comparison, a cloud engineer is a system builder. They're going to be doing a lot of configuration, and they may need to code, and they do get involved with software. Now, a cloud sysops person, wow, these people are basically the maintenance people and the automation people. So because of that, they're going to be doing lots of Python scripts, CloudFormation, Terraform, lots of code. And people that work in DevOps, everything's code. All they're doing is automating software release cycles, and they need to code, Ahmad. So, Ahmad, if you tell me exactly what you want to know, then what career, I can tell you exactly. But architects are basically moving the network and the data center to the cloud. And that's why I highly recommend those things. So I hope I answered your question there. But if you want to tell me exactly what you want, I can build you a map. Now, Bhagabu Sharma, actually, how to find an internship? Well, that is a really great question. So Chris from my team will find the how to pick an internship video that I created. We created a video on how to find effective internships. And what do I mean by that? Getting an internship where all you do all day long is make YAML templates, for example, for containers, or configure users in IAM, will not help you become a cloud architect. All you can become is a free employee to somebody else. Now, if you get to be involved in design meetings, if you get to do projects that are related to the infrastructure, if you get to learn, it's great. And a good internship has mentorship. You should be able to ask questions and learn. I have some interns. My interns work with me. They learn. The whole point of an internship is to make you better. And you know what? I hired some of my interns too. Because if they're good, you get hired. So I don't want you to just go out there and find any wasted internship. It's just going to suck up your time to say you did something. I want you to go find an internship that is fantastic. So there's a video that we created on how to do this. So first, look for available internships. And if you can't find one, make a social media post on LinkedIn. Now, say nothing negative in there. Never make a post that says, I can't get hired, because that signals to the world there's something wrong. Make a post. You finished school. You love the cloud. You love technology. Would anybody like a highly motivated, highly energetic, highly enthusiastic cloud computing professional? I'd like to be your intern. We'll we'll, and in there, put happy to help your organization grow in any way I can. All I desire is a chance to get experience and get some training. You'll find it that way. You'll get it. You'll get an internship. But I want to make sure the internship is a good one, Bhagamu Sharma. So there's a video that we created, Chris. It's about 3 months old, this video, and the video is on how to pick the right kind of internships to help your career. Well, I'll go to the next question, Chris, and if you could pop that link into the chat box, I think it'll be very helpful for Bhagavu Sharma. Michael, what age do you think is too old to start? I've got people in their 60s, and I've got a 60s, like 4-year-old student. He's one of my best. Um, I've had him for 3 weeks, and he impresses me. You know, these architectural roles, you got to look at them and analyze them for what they are. They're leadership roles, they're business roles, they're sales skills roles. Um, they're very elite roles. And what happens is when you've got a lot of life experience, for example, what you can do is you can translate that life experience. For example, I practiced medicine before I went to the club, or before I went to the network. You know what medicine taught me? Medicine taught me how to ask the right questions, how to think about things holistically, the need to have deep knowledge, how to communicate it to people, and basically be a little bit persuasive. Sometimes you've got to convince a patient to lose 50 pounds, stop smoking, and take a medication they don't want to take to keep them alive. So I learned these things. So we find people that have a customer service background, for example, or a sales background, are much easier to get hired because they have some of these soft skills already developed. So don't worry about age. I work with people, I think the youngest person I have is 18, and in school. And I've worked with people in school, and by the time they graduate, they get really great jobs. And I've worked in people in their 60s. I was retired for a couple of years there, Michael. It was the worst experience of my life. So I didn't survive it for very long. So it's never too late to start. All it takes is passion, energy, enthusiasm, motivation, and the ability to do things with excellence, and you can do whatever you want at any age. Hope I answered your question there, Michael. Rav Singh Song, what if you have questions on non-class days? Great question. We have a Slack channel where people actually ask the questions on the Slack channel. And we even have people that support our clients to make sure in between classes they don't miss anything. So we are our real class. We don't make you dummy courses where you download a video and we hope and pray that you learn something. This is a real live educational training program. Just because I keep the cost low to make sure that people in developing nations can afford it doesn't mean we don't support it like it was a $20,000 course, which is really what we should be charging for the kind of content that's in here. We just make it one day's pay, so there's no barrier to entry, and that way we get people that come to us from all over the world, everywhere, every time. We take them in, we get them hired, they're thankful, they bring other people along. That's our process, so that's the best way I can describe it. Ahmed, I answered it. You was trying to figure out the different types of architects, for example. So, Ahmed, really great question. An infrastructure architect is someone that focuses predominantly on the network, the servers, the load balancers, all the stuff that powers it, the infrastructure. That's an infrastructure architect. A cloud security architect is really a security architect that knows the cloud. So, like a CISSP or a CEH, that deep kind of security experience, and also professional level cloud experience. That's typically what goes into that. I hope I've answered your question, Ahmad. If you've got more, please feel free to answer them, and I'm thrilled to answer any question I can to help you in your career. Who else has a question for me? Any other questions for me? Thank you. My associate posted a link to our training as well as a coupon code for anyone that's interested. Um, Ahmed, I'm glad we were able to get your question answered. I just want everyone to be successful. Any other questions for me? Bagusham, did you ask a question that I didn't notice? Is a degree in computer engineering required to get a job? No. Um, Let me tell you what my degrees are in. My first master's degree is in nursing as a nurse practitioner. My second is in business. And I've never had a computer engineering degree to do so. I will also tell you, I know people that I have coached that some have gotten great jobs with no degrees. And usually the people that get the best jobs actually have business degrees, not even tech degrees, because they have business acumen, communication skills. So, for example, you don't need a degree in computers. Degrees are helpful. If you don't have a degree, you still need that level of learning, knowledge, communication skills that go with it that theoretically come from a degree. But degrees are not necessary, but helpful. Rav Singh I'm trying to find. How do I evaluate my students' knowledge? Well, my students design live architectures with me twice per week. And I get to see them in action. And I know by the questions people ask if they get it. For example, what we typically do in our architecture calls is we have a lead architect. And the lead architect comes and asks me questions. As people progress, they become the lead architect. They get to bring other people with them. If they're the lead architect and they can do a great job, I know they're ready. Plus, I'm also looking at people's homework assignments. They're turning in feedback. So I make people be cloud architects twice a week. So I know if they can do the job because I watch them do the job. But I also look at their homework. And I've been in this world forever. So I know how to listen to someone and it's there. How do we know, for example, when we do an interview, to pass over someone that's bluffing? Because we've lived the life. So I hope I answered that question, Rob Singh Song. I make my students design things constantly. And I watch them design things. So that's how I can evaluate them because I put them in the job every single day. Bhagavu Sharma, you could do what you choose. Generally speaking, you'll get much more career potential with an MBA than a master's degree in technology. Has much more upside. Alonzo Coleman, wow, it's always great to hear from you. Once you complete building your own cloud, how would you showcase that as skill? I want you to build that research and development section on your resume, and Alonzo will work with you on that section, and I want you to list all those really great things. Worked with VMware ESXi server virtualization, set up Docker containers. I want you to list, set up Microsoft Active Directory for IAM solution. I want you to put built in OpenStack Ansible Cloud and connected it or federated it with Microsoft Active Directory for a single sign-on. I want you to talk about the cloud and the compute instances that you put in there. I want you to talk about the NFS shares that you're creating, the Samba shares that you're creating, the firewalls that you're creating. I want it all there, Alonzo. And Alonzo, you're one of our students, so we will make sure that we help you with that project. I'll make sure I connect you with someone on my team, and I will work with them for that, and we'll make sure that you've got the perfect template for that, customized for you based upon your unique experience. But we'll build a template that everybody else can customize, but I'll definitely work with you because your experience is is special compared to others. Rav Singh Song, it's not a matter of how many people that we actually include in the class, it's a matter of how many people are successful. We've got a lot of students all over the world. We typically have about 30 to 50 on a call. It takes 30 to 50 on a call to try and work with the complexity of the projects that we actually do. When we give our students an architecture to design, these aren't anything small. These are big environments, the kind of environments that I've done in my career. One, for example, we'll deal with a global retailer that has $5 billion in sales. Another design that we might work on, for example, would be a healthcare organization with mission critical requirements. We'll work on a big data one this Friday, for example. We will deal with organizations that have 50,000 remote access employees and 20,000 remote locations. and 50,000 subnets. These are normal things that cloud architects deal with. And we know most people are not prepared for that level of challenges. So we work really, really, really hard to make sure all of our students become experts by the time they're done. So that's how we do this. Ahmad, are the clients customers you design their systems for come back as passive income for business for the company? Or is it a one-time sale? Well, it depends on the company, Ahmad. Um, I do some cloud consulting on the side. It's a one-time sale. Me and some of my cloud architects do some cloud consulting. We're working with a machine learning security architecture project, for example. Kind of one of those things that we do. Sujith, you want to take a free class? Totally fine. Send an email to the @Go Cloud Careers. Chris will pop that there, and we will invite you to Friday's class. And if you've got any questions, you can call and ask questions. That one's an easy one to answer. I haven't dropped my phone number. Chris will drop the link for the email. Let's get you registered for a free class on Friday. We won't take any credit cards or anything. We'll just send you the Zoom invite based on your email. But anyway, Rav Singh Song, everybody gets enough personal attention. None of our students have complained that they ever had a problem. And sure, definitely join Friday's class. It's going to be a fun one. Did I answer everyone's questions? Because if there's any other questions, just let me know. It's very hard sometimes when you get a lot of questions coming from a lot of different parts of the world at the same time. But we're thrilled to do this. Thank you so much, Rajith. Also, tomorrow, we're going to have our fun, free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar, and we're going to tell you everything, the whole step in the process. So please, anybody that wants to attend, we love training, and we do a lot of free training for a reason. So please, Chris, pop the link to that webinar tomorrow again, because these things scroll very quickly. Anybody else have any questions? In Vinci Ho, yes. So if I was trying to train for free, and I don't know that it's possible for you to become a cloud architect for free per se, but I will tell you all the free resources that are available for you, and then I will get into networking lessons question next. If you are on your own, first thing you could do is you could follow our completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate, and then our completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, and our completely free AWS Advanced Networking course. From there, I would go to Cisco, and I would read all about networking. Now, you're going to have to go through their documentation. It's going to be a minimum about 1,000 pages of reading to get what you need from Cisco on networking. That will teach you a lot about networking. You need to learn about VLANs and trunking and .1Q tagging and NAT, quality of service, BGP, EBGP, IBGP, IGPs and the way they work, route summarization, subnetting, all this in depth. Entry-level knowledge minimum. Then, from there, you need to understand security. So go to Cisco, Palo Alto, Fortinet, and Checkpoint. You're going to read about 1,000 pages of how to design security information, unless you're with us. Everything you need to know, how to secure a perimeter of a network. For example, secure outside in, you do like a DDoS protection, you do a firewall, you do an IDS, IPS system, you protect your subnets with access control lists. If you're in a cloud, you might use something like a security group. I'll take your question in a second networking lesson. After that, you're going to put a host-based firewall, disable unnecessary services, etc., etc. You need to be able to do all of that. And computer networking in Cisco is critical and a huge help. So networking lessons, I'll get to you in a minute, as soon as I finish this question. So all that is critical. And then you must learn business acumen. That's going to take a whole lot. There's no way to learn that without buying some MBA type textbooks on finance. Minimum, some knowledge of economics, supply and demand curves. All this stuff becomes absolutely critical. then you must learn how to become an expert presenter. And I don't mean a basic presenter, I mean an expert presenter. And you're going to need to learn gravitas, emotional intelligence, soft skills. You get some of that from the Jerry Weissmans in the world and some of that from the Boyatis and Goldman Group, but it's not going to be enough. If you're not with us, make sure you get some of those training courses. Now, those training courses are good $3,000 to $10,000 just for the soft skills training, but there's no way to become a real cloud architect without it. You could try reading some of these things, but realistically speaking, it's going to be tough. And then make sure you get a server and set up everything, including building your own cloud. That's how I would do it for free. I did produce a video, and it is on there as how to become a cloud architect. That is step by step on what to do. I don't know if it's possible to do it for free. We listed the free resources for learning the tech, but the tech is only 50% of it. So do that, and if you're with us, we include it all at a low price. If you are not with us, that's how you can get the free technical components. But that interview capability, executive presence, emotional intelligence, presentation skills, it will be impossible without them. So get them somehow. Get them somewhere. They're included with us. If you're not with us, get some training on them and you will be golden. But you need both. It's not just technical. It's that technical business acumen, executive presence kind of thing. Okay. Networking lesson with Yaga. You have 7 years experience as a network engineer. Did you work at Cisco, and Arista, and Amazon? Is that so? Networking lessons. Let me answer your question. And Michael, networking is essential. Essential. So networking question with Yaga. I don't know what you actually did at these companies, for example. Were you a systems engineer at Cisco? Were you technical support? Did you work at Cisco or did you just learn Cisco? Please let me know what you've actually done and then I can give you your guidance. For example, networking lesson with Yaga. I know more CCIEs like me that have gone to the cloud with literally nothing other than networking and background. A networking background, so I need to know exactly what you have. So what have you done? Have you been in a pre-sales role? What have you actually done with these roles? I'll be a little more specific networking lesson because you're asking a specific question and I got to know exactly. What did you do at Cisco? Were you a systems engineer, a consulting systems architect, tech support, sales, product sales specialist? That's going to give me the information that I need. Okay, what was your specialty? So technical consulting engineer. Now, typically I would think of a consulting systems engineer on the pre-sale side and a technical consulting engineer on the post-sale side, like part of customer advocacy. That is network testing and troubleshooting. Okay, so if you're coming from a network testing and troubleshooting perspective, and that's all back-end stuff, did you ever do any pre-sales? Did you meet with clients and design solutions for them at all in any of these companies? Like working as have you ever done any systems engineer work that's pre-sales? Have you ever done any executive briefings in the executive briefing seminar environment? Have you ever done any of those kind of things, or is it all back end, like running an Ixia, testing things, and then trying to figure out what's broken? If you tell me that, now I know what your baseline is, and then I know exactly how to guide you, because networking is a great background. Also, let me know if you have a CCIE, for example, and if so, what it's in, or a CCNP, and if so, what it's in. Oops, I spilled stuff all over me. Okay, you are a network test engineer, testing various features, IP, NetFlow, got it. No experience with pre-sales. So, your biggest challenge is actually going to take some of that network knowledge that you have, which is great and substantial, and then becoming a pre-sales person, because an architect is more pre-sales. So when you're working at that level where you're testing things, and I'm assuming testing, you mean like within Ixia, where you're trying to inject, 1 million routes into a router to see how long it can take, have 1 million routes from 5 different or 10 different or 30 different service providers, set up 1,000,001 GRE tunnels, set up 1,000 IPsec tunnels to try and see what its performance is. then you're there. That's typically what I see in these engineers. Deep, deep, extremely deep technical knowledge in a very small environment. So with that, what you need to do is you need to take a big step back. You need to learn how to do the BGP architectural designs. Say that book from Bassam Halabi, which was called Internet Routing Architectures, where he told you, how to manipulate traffic inflow and outflows, how to work with these environments to prefer one path over another path, how to engineer your traffic. That's the kind of stuff that you need to know. Bring it up to the architecture level. Now, the network is only part of it. Network is, I'd say, 30 to 50%. The other 50% is that other non-network stuff, which other people call network, like load balancers aren't network, but you need to be good at load balancers. Firewalls are also not network, but you need to really have a deep understanding of firewalls, for example. And thank you so much, F.A. Pearl. Really appreciate your feedback. So you need to understand a deep understanding of firewalls, IDS, IPS systems, how they work. Then you're going to need to learn security design, not just 802.1x and private VLANs, but you're going to have to learn how you design all the pieces and parts together. You're going to have to learn how the compute platform kind of works together, the storage platforms, and all these things. From there, coming from post-sales, you're going to have to work really hard to get the business acumen that's necessary, how to do ROI modeling. You're going to have to get really good at presenting to the customer. You're going to have to get lots of experience designing architecture. You're going to have lots of experience presenting architecture. You're going to have to learn how to be in front of the CEO and the CTO and the CIO. At Cisco, they would call it CXO relevancy, and they'd send architects like us to training class after training class after training class to make sure we can connect with the CEO, because that's the job. CEO, CIO, CTO, the leadership, you got to learn how to connect to all of it. So if you do these kind of things, then you'll be there. Generally speaking, for engineers, speak easy, for example, for speech, would do it. The emotional intelligence by the Goldman Group is there. Presentation skills, I've given you some. Or you could take our program, which includes literally everything, where we work on everything from the network to the data center to the security to the emotional intelligence, presentation skills, communication skills, business acumen. Whatever you do, you're going to need that. Do it with us. Do it with somewhere else. We're by far the cheapest. And we can do that with our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. Chris can pop the link to that if you're curious, as long with the coupon. And if you really want to know more, feel free to call us. I spent a decade at Cisco. Started with me being the voice architect in the New York environment. And then after that, I joined the Business Solutions Group, where I was a management consultant, and then moved into the lead architect at Cisco for the healthcare division. And we reported directly into the team that reported into John Chambers to advise the future of technology. So Cisco experience, wonderful. Arista experience, fantastic. So you've got lots of good experience, but those are the skills necessary to go from back end to front end. I hope I answered your question. You're more than welcome. Networking is a great, great, great passion and background of mine. To put it into context, my CCIE number is 7417, which I did in 2000, back when this was this horrible 2-day exam. So, love working with networking people. You got a great background. Chris from my team is going to put a link to the course. He'll also provide you with a 20% discount code. And he will also, you can also call me, and I'll give you all the details that you would want or need. I'll pop the link to my phone number again. I know it's probably there, I just don't know where it is. Bhagaru Sharma, I am the CEO of Gold Cloud Architects. That's the company that I work for. Now, I work at it about 80 to 100 hours a week. The secret to your success in your career is as follows. Do one thing. Do it better than anybody else in the world. Devote all your time, effort, money, and everything into being the best at that one thing, and that's how you succeed. Now, I do have a consulting division, and we are doing projects, but most of the projects we do, we sign a non-disclosure agreement. So mentioning who they are is probably not appropriate. But I focus 100% of my efforts on making Go Cloud Architects the best training program in the world, and I try and do it at a price that's the lowest in the industry. Do I ever work with FANG? All the time, and I've got students that work for all these FANG companies. I will tell you, there's lots of better companies to work for example, but I work with them constantly. And some of my people are at Facebook, lots of my people are at Amazon. Lots of people, my people typically don't go to Apple. And the reason why people typically don't go to Apple is Apple's more of a consumer company, and they typically are out of the big data stuff, and they typically outsource their cloud stuff and all their servers to other people. So they typically don't go to Apple, and generally speaking, they don't go to Netflix. Lots go to Google, but yes, all the time. And yes, Netflix does use the cloud, but I've got an equal number of people that go to big banks. I've got an equal number of people that go to other companies as well. In Vinci Hulk, all of the people on all of our courses get to use our 16 cores, our 24 core Xeon servers. Absolutely, in all of our courses. We created all of these programs for one reason: to make sure people had access to everything at a price that would be low cost. We charge for our career development program approximately 1 day's pay for the cloud architect. We're not trying to make life hard, we're trying to be a solution provider. If I can save somebody 6 months and the average cloud architect earns $600 a day, I have effectively given them $72,000 of benefits. If I train emotional intelligence, and you can look up the statistics, people that train emotional intelligence on average earn $29,600 more per year than someone else. If I can boost someone's interview to get them a $20,000 to $50,000 raise, I can literally have an impact of at least $150,000 to the average student for $800. So I like to make sure that when we do things, we make our students be able to conquer the world in a good way. We make them so prepared that when other people interview against our people, they have no choice but to hire our people. So that's my focus. Any other questions for me? Any other questions for me? Bhagavu Sharna, realistically speaking, I used to take internships, but I don't do it anymore, and the reason is a lot of my students want to get bonus work, so I have them being interns in our company. And an internship really requires you a good one to be able to communicate and teach others. I'm really pretty busy from 6 o'clock in the morning to midnight most days. Any other questions? Okay, so I'll give it about 1 minute to see if there are any other questions. Otherwise, I will stop, and I am happy to come back next week. Just had a little bit of open time this morning, so I wanted to do everything I could to try and assist you. Okay, doesn't look like there's any more questions. So, thank you all for coming this morning. I hope we answered your questions. I hope you had a really great time. I hope this was a good experience for everyone. If anyone has a question, they can feel free to call our office and we would be happy to assist you. I don't have a preference of any operating system. I have a preference in using Bhagavad Sharma, whatever is the best tool for the job. Typically speaking, that's Linux, but I'm an architect. I don't prefer Google. I don't prefer AWS. I don't prefer anything. What do I do as an architect? I find what's in the best interest of my company based on their use case. So, lots of tools out there. I find the best tool for my customer for the job every time, regardless of who makes it. So, okay, Alonzo, it was wonderful. Bhagavu Sharma, it's been a real pleasure to spend some time with you all this morning. Hope you have a wonderful day. And Meme, I'm not sure what you mean. Cloud and telecommunications is the main theme, but realistically speaking, we cover that in either every YouTube video or every class we teach our students. Everything is network and data center, which means cloud. So of course we cover that. Anyway, thank you all. It was wonderful to spend the morning with you. I hope you have a great day, and I will be here to assist the community. Tomorrow we are having a completely free how to get your first cloud architect job webinar. It's lots of fun, realistically speaking, and we come and invite you. I will post the link to that webinar real quick because I have it, and we hope to see you there. Any further questions, please feel free to call me. I've seen some people that texted me already that they'd like me to call them back. So definitely, I will definitely call them back. And have a wonderful day. Take care, everyone. I'll talk to you all soon.